if you live within a system and the only way you can affect that system is by voting, then if they're giving out free money, I don't get to vote whether or not that money goes to something I care about.
Yeah.
I didn't get that vote.
Yeah.
They just gave me money.
Yeah.
So, like, to morally be like, oh, poo-poo that fucking $1,200 from Donald Trump.
Your money's no good, government.
You know, that's crazy to me.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this. And totally redeem yourself!
Welcome back, Internet, to another episode of Three Averagely Intelligent Dudes, and today we're discussing some dangerous ideas. Some particularly dangerous ideas today. The R. Kelly trial has been all over the news, as well as the sentencing of Keith Raniere, the NXIVM leader who branded his sex cult. We're going to talk about that for a little while. It gets a little spicy. And then we're going to talk about the other big news story, the leaked... What are they, Pandora Papers?
The Pandora Papers.
Yes, the P word.
The Pandora Papers that reveal a number of different agencies and law firms that kind of just exposes sort of what we already know, but just that the rich and powerful people use loopholes and tax havens all around the world to skirt their, social responsibility, if you will, in the countries that they operate and make money in.
And we talk about a lot of philosophical ideas in this one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yep.
We do.
Yeah, it's we take these topics as an opportunity to think about the concepts behind them rather than the people or just what happened. Yeah, like we always try to make sure that we come at these discussions in a way that is applicable to all people, and so it can really, you learn all kinds of different things, not just that the rich people don't pay taxes or that R. Kelly was touching people.
We're not just a news podcast. It's like we're holding up the filter of humanity, and we're looking at this through like a lens of like, how does this affect the world? How does this affect us?
Yeah.
How does this affect you?
I could definitely say that this episode taught me some things. I learned some things personally in my own journey through these conversations and stuff, and so I think it's gonna be a really good one, and we appreciate having you here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get into it.
With the Pandora Papers, I keep thinking about how we've had multiple of these with different names. Like going
It's
back,
like a trend now.
Oh yeah, like during the Vietnam War, it was called the Pentagon Papers, I believe.
I think
when those came out, it was before WikiLeaks and the internet.
Yeah.
But then once
those were literal papers.
Those were literally they leaked papers.
Somebody took a box of papers and was like, "Here, do something with this.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody I gave it to you."
And once again, like almost all of my knowledge on that comes from a Hollywood movie. So
Right.
you never really even know how
So
historically accurate is that?
That's where I get
This one, it's funny. They all have, like, recently, a lot of them, like, they all have P's. Like the PP. People like alliteration. So you got to find, like, a P word to go with the word
like
papers.
I said, even the 70s one or 80s one was Pentagon Papers.
Yeah, Pentagon Papers. There's the Paradise Papers.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think you probably heard of the thing that it was. But, actually, if you go to the IP, what is it, the IICJ?
The article that I was looking at from...
Yeah, I can't... No, I pulled it up. It's right there at the end.
That's my...
Yep. Okay, so it's the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists put out this Pandora Papers article about all of the stuff that they discovered from the data that they received, which was like 2.94 terabytes of data.
Damn.
Yeah, it's like a lot of shit. Mostly documents, like PDFs and shit like that.
Yo,
some of
that's
them were like
insane.
10,000 pages deep.
I mean, what a PDF is like 900 kilobytes.
Well, not when it's 10,000 pages long.
Well, still, but
actually, if you scroll down a little bit, they have a breakdown of like how the data came to them and what it was all in. No, it's more. No, we don't want to know. It's already published. It's a graphic. You can, there it is. So it was like mostly documents, like 6 million documents, 3 million images. Surprisingly, they have like a huge, like 800,000 others. And I'm like, what is that? Like, what could others? These are the only forms of documentation that I know.
Are those all, they're emulated Sega games?
Well, they said that they have.
It's a Broadway show.
They even have physical papers in this as well. So it's like not all digital, but they obviously scan them to make it digital, to make it easier to go through. But yeah, it's like 11.9 million files, like individual files. But again, like they even said like some of these PDFs were like 10,000 pages long.
Where do you get a conglomerate of that type of information from, though? Like somebody just had all this shit stored on a hard drive.
Well,
it's like an accountant, like in movies when you're like, we gotta get to the account.
I mean, it could be hackers as well, because that's the first thing that comes to my mind is like not Pelosi emails, excuse me, the Podesta emails that came out, which is another P word. It's funny how there's
Podesta Papers.
We had the Pentagon Papers, Pandora Papers. There's more.
Yeah.
But now you got the fucking. Anyways, the Podesta shit, when that dropped, it was like a hacker had just gotten a huge amount of like pretty much all this guy's emails. And it was like, that's just as easy as you just fish somebody.
Yeah.
You fish somebody at the DNC, you get the hacked emails, and you just, here you go.
But like you said, that's a centralized point. Like that's all about from one dude. Like,
and that's what's interesting about the Pandora Papers is
all these different corporations.
A lot of the previous ones would come from like a single source, like one accountant agency or one law firm would release documents on various of their clients or whatever. This one comes from 14 different sources. And like this organization, the ICIJ, they basically have, I think it said like 100 and something contributors all over the world. And like one thing that was interesting to me, because this is from 14 different sources, but they're all over the world. So like documents are in Korean, they're in Russian, they're in like all these different languages, and they have all these different like some people organized it based on the client name, some people organized it based off the office location. And so like the first thing that pops out to me is that it took them over a year to do this investigation, and it's like just to sort like you just have to every day you just sit down at your desk at 8 a.m. in the morning and you just got to read a 10,000 page PDF document and see if there's anything interesting in it. And it's like, God damn, that's an incredible amount of like tedious work to go through all this shit and make the connections. Because it's not like, it's not like the documents are like, we do these fucking, it's all in like weird, it's just like a conversation.
It's a big puzzle.
Yeah.
There's puzzle people. Like, watch that, Fuck Cats, or what was it?
Oh yeah, I love that documentary.
You know what I mean? And I was just like, there's all these people just willing, and like she's like, yeah,
don't mess with cats.
Yeah, she's like, I'm an analyst by trade, but when I come home at night, I like to just analyze random things on the internet. And I'm just like, yo, y'all are tripping.
This is definitely some crowdsourced investigative journalism type of like. I guess they just got in with hackers across all these different, or leakers across all these different things.
Yeah, that's the one thing that they don't talk about
in this
Edward
article
Snowden's. Is who, like, how they came about this information.
But these are the people that actually compiled it and released it.
Yes, this is the organization.
I didn't know if they like got it dumped on their front doorstep or if they were the ones that actually went looking.
No, I don't know. Like, how they acquired the data is not revealed, but they are the ones that went through all of it and figured out what was going on. And for those of you that don't know, what's going on is not really anything surprising. This is we already kind of knew this. It's just interesting to see the individual details of individual people and politicians and stuff. But basically, it's all about how rich and powerful people avoid taxes and launder money and have assets overseas. And like the people who are connected, these 14 different firms that do these weird financial deals with them, basically.
The idea of criminal culpability that you mentioned really piqued my interest because, this is the whole Julian Assange thing where it's like, you're a publisher and we're going to get you because we think that you fucking conspired with Chelsea Manning or conspired with the people who released the DNC emails or whatever. And it's like, could they go after the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and fucking, do they got some front guy that they're going to slap into jail? I always think about that because it's like, if you have unnamed sources in your journalism, to what level is that criminal culpability just not on your shoulders? If you actively are saying like, we're working with 14 anonymous sources to leak all this government information. Could they go after these people? I mean, that's an interesting question.
That is interesting. I mean, they definitely can go after the government people, but I don't think you can go after the civilians who aren't bound by any type of contract or constitution or anything. Like you said, if like this was like the DOJ or some shit and they just busted in some random people's houses and stole all their hard drives, then I mean, of course, right? Like, but as like a civilian, you can just spy on your neighbors and shit. You know, you can just like rummage through their trash, I guess. But I don't know if you can just necessarily break into their house and download their hard drive, though.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing about this is that most of it isn't criminal activity per se. You know, it's
just bad looking shit.
Yeah, you know, it's like frowned upon in polite society amongst the plebes of the commoners, I guess. I don't know. But like, you know, they're technically just using loopholes. You know, like, hey, look, I'm just shirking your taxes.
Yeah.
And you know, so it's like there obviously is some illegal stuff in there because there's like firms that were working with like known drug dealers and doing like actually money laundering and stuff like that. But mostly it's just like rich people trying to avoid paying taxes. Surprisingly enough, apparently there are people using firms in South Dakota, which is like the #1 place in the United States. There's actually not a lot of information from the United States in this leak, which I thought it would be more, but it's mostly from like Russia and like Latin America and places in Africa and stuff like that. But like 330 politicians are involved in it. In South Dakota is like the hot spot for it here in America.
I thought it was North Dakota.
No, it's South Dakota.
Oh, okay.
I mean, maybe they're pretty good too. But interestingly enough, they were saying that people were using the South Dakota firms to like hide money here so that they didn't have to pay taxes in their countries. And I'm trying to think of like what other wealthy countries have higher taxes, and I'm like, these are like the Scandinavians, I guess. Like,
corporate tax rates. Think about corporate tax rates, though. America's
that's
like,
true.
I wouldn't say like we have the best. I mean, I'm sure it's like we have some good ones and some bad ones, but there's probably like reasons or benefits in some sense. That's and if you have a reason or benefit where you want to funnel your money into America, then you just find the best state to do it in because we're a states' rights type of country.
Well, that's what I found interesting because with all these places like Panama being out there, it's like, why wouldn't everybody just put their money in Panama or the Cayman Islands or something? But I guess most do. I mean,
see a statistic that was saying like it was like a vast majority was in the Caribbean.
Yeah, actually, that was in the Bloomberg article that I pulled up.
Are you speaking about the Panama Papers? Was the one I'm thinking of, where it was like a year or two ago, and it showed a lot of the British. There was like British money and like royal money over there, and they were like, "Yo, fucking Prince Henry or some shit's got some shit going on over there."
Yeah, and
largely refers to low tax regimes in territories such as the British Virgin Islands, Panama, and the Cayman Islands. It can also include the U.S. states of Delaware, Nevada, and South Dakota, where so-called financial trusts allow wealthy individuals to be anonymous in their financial dealings.
Yeah, and it's all done through like shell companies and trusts and foundations.
Heard this referred to a lot as dark money recently in articles and people talking about it, and that's, you want to talk about where does all the dark money go? American elections for one.
Yeah, and this is like, this is the kind of stuff like that. The Walt Disney story really fascinates me, where what he did with Florida to make Disney World or whatever. Yeah, he used all these shell companies to buy up individual parcels of land in Florida. And so that way it wasn't like Disney was buying it. It was like these weird, whatever, fucking fake corporations. And then he basically got the city to call it a county. And so then all of the infrastructure, like the water and the electric, was all paid for by tax dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is like, that's how they use it. Like, you see what I'm saying? I was actually really excited to do this conversation because, well, I want to know how to do it.
Right. I'm like, because don't get me wrong, I'm not against people avoiding paying taxes.
Because people are always like, oh, the rich do this and that, and they don't pay their taxes. But you don't often understand that, like, you can do it too. Like, there's so many simple little tips and tricks that even the regular everyday American could use to like lower their tax burden. You know what I mean?
And I mean, everybody does it. Everybody takes deductible. I mean, not deductible, but like, you take your whatever the IRS is gonna let you write off of that shit. You're taking it. Like, I've never met anybody that was like, nah, take it all. Take it.
Yeah, right.
I don't want anything back.
I want to pay more.
No. Keep my tax refund. No, thank you.
Well, definitely when you see how the rich live, if you're not a rich person and somebody came to you or you did your research and found out like, oh, the government will just give me a couple $100,000 for whatever reason, like, no. I don't want to. No, we are already in debt.
Yeah,
no, you're going to be like, oh, I qualify for this thing?
Yeah,
sure. Seems like a good reason to do that thing.
Yeah. Like you said, I don't care what tax bracket you fall into. You didn't turn down your fucking Biden bucks. You know?
Facts.
Great point. And if there's $800 billion for the fucking military or the defense budget, I'm sure you could slide me a couple thousand.
You know what I mean? Like
it's not going to hurt the world.
People asked me about that. They were like, how could you be against all these like social welfare programs, but then accept the money for the IRS giving it back to you in the stimulus checks? And I was like, because that's my money.
Because I live in a society where they deem that to happen.
Yeah, I was like, and besides, even if I didn't feel like it was my money to begin with, if the government's just handing out free money, I'm gonna go up there and get some.
Why would you say
like? Why would you not do that?
You exactly. Like, if you live within a system and the only way you can affect that system is by voting, then if they're giving out free money, I don't get to vote whether or not that money goes to something I care about.
Yeah.
I didn't get that vote.
Yeah.
They just gave me money.
Yeah.
So, like, to morally be like, oh, poo that fucking $1,200 from Donald Trump.
Your money's no good, government.
That's crazy.
This is an analogy. It's not really the same thing, but this is like, for me, when I see people getting mad at soldiers and like, people in the military, like, the war is not those people's fault. Like, if your struggle is with the fact that we're fighting XYZ war, like, don't go after the military people. So it's the same thing too. Like, I always look at it as like, I didn't make the fucking rules to this game. I'm just playing the game the best I can, like everybody else. Like, they already said this is Monopoly. Now I'm just trying to get as much as I can within that system. And so, I mean, that's what capitalism's about. Like you said, if you don't like it, fix the fucking rules.
Look, when you pass go, you take the $200.
You collect the $200.
You don't just say, I'd rather be in jail, thank you.
Yeah, you didn't make the rules. So for me, like I said, this conversation is very interesting because I wonder how they do certain things like that. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been to a theme park or a mall or some gigantic megalithic like structure, and I'm like, who pays the electricity in this fucking building? Like, my electric bill is like $350 for my little ass house. I'm like, I can't imagine what it is for the Dallas Cowboys football stadium.
Yeah, the overhead.
I think about that at water parks. I'm like, I bet you this water bill is insane.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but they don't pay it.
Like, they don't. They don't pay
Disney
it.
World is a perfect example. They didn't pay for any of that shit. They just bought the land,
all the roads,
used some type of fucking law to make it a county, and then your taxpayers paid for Disneyland to get water piping, to build all the sewage draining systems, the roads. Those are all county roads on Disneyland. Like, it's crazy.
What really was interesting for me is it got me really thinking, because I was watching people talk about how these corporations and the government are like working together to create the loopholes in the laws so that way they can find all these ways through it. And like, at first I was like, yeah, that makes sense, like corruption and conspiracy. But then the more I thought about it and the more I think about my stance on just like grand conspiracies in general, I always think that it's more about a bunch of people. Like, to me, I feel like these kinds of scenarios happen where government bureaucracies and people who are just like no-name paper pushers actually write up a lot of this stuff, like the laws. So they write up all these laws, but there are laws about this, and there's laws about that, and there's laws that apply to these people, but not to those people. And so you have this hodgepodge, and it doesn't really have a cohesive idea to keep it all going in the right direction. And so then really smart accountants and lawyers come behind them, and they just find all the mistakes in the code. Like, when you're programming, you like write code, and then you go back and you check the code, and you're like, oh, I fucked this up. And so that's kind of what I feel like is really happening. Like, it's not a conspiracy. It's just like people make dumb laws, and they make laws that conflict with other laws, and then other people come behind them and they just, oh, well, I can just skirt that law by doing this.
Are you also discounting the fact that people manipulate that from the go, though? Because like, I definitely think
I don't think that that's the main course.
I don't know about that, man.
Because there's so many different. The reason why is because there's so many different, especially in America. Like, the laws are such to the point where a good example is the tobacco thing in California, where they tax the shit out of tobacco, but then they also subsidize tobacco industry. So it's like you have different groups pulling the government in different directions, and that creates the cracks that you can slip through, is what I vision.
But then that's my point, is the tobacco industry is heavily manipulative in the creating of laws. I mean, when they were about to ban tobacco and shit like that, like the tobacco lobbyists and all that stuff went like hella hard on like combating all these different things within that law.
Yeah,
so
but I don't think that it's
Definitely
the case that the tobacco industry is like in bed with the tobacco taxers.
Oh,
That's
no,
what I'm saying. I think that they're all just operating on their own.
There's tons. I think some cases the people who are writing the bills are writing them, with their people, their aides, their whatever. But there's definitely instances where a corporation's like, oh, we got a bill for that. Mm-hmm. We wrote the bill.
Yeah.
You Susan Gildebrand, you fucking
sponsor
whoever,
this.
sponsor this and bring it into the House, bring it into the Senate, and or stuff it into this fucking thing. And that shit is written by the same lawyers who are then going to find, it's like, oh, we wrote a tax loophole in there.
Right.
So if you said ollie oxen free before you went in there and you did 3 spins around counterclockwise, you don't have to pay any taxes. And like, I know I'm being silly, but how the fuck do you think people like Amazon don't pay taxes?
Yeah.
It's not just because, oh, I have infinite money so I could write the bills. Oh, wait, that's what it is.
Yeah. No, I think it's a
what it is.
combination of both. I think sometimes people write bills not. Jordan Peterson, perfect example, where he was fighting the little C-16 bill. I just saw a clip of this the other day, and he was also saying, he's like, it's not like I'm against discrimination. Like, I get what y'all are trying to do. You're trying to help people, and that's great. But he's like, but in the way you're going about it, you're not seeing how that could end in some fuck shit. So I definitely think that happens sometimes, where they produce a law and they just don't think it all the way through and they leave little gaps and stuff like that. But there's definitely a whole nother subsection, and I would say it's either a 50-50 or like a 60-40 split of just fuck shit. Like you said, where McDonald's writes the law and then brings it to them and says, we want this to be a law. You need to make this shit happen because I paid for you to be sitting in that chair. And because, you see it even just in the politics where they go back and forth and they're like, all right, well, I'll let you keep that in there, but you got to put my thing in there. And they're like, well, like they're negotiating on what goes in the laws in the first place. So I just know that there's fuck shit going on where there's.
To tack it onto this corkboard, I would say that leaks like this seem to happen a lot. They said the Panama one was within 5 years ago, and then you have this one, and we know about
the Paradise one was in 2017.
Yeah, there's so many we could point back to and say, oh, those leaks, the Edward Snowden, the WikiLeaks, whatever. It's always them doing some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
There's never, and like, no one, it'll be shit I've never heard of because I don't think about what are the good things that the CIA does because I don't have many cases of that.
Yeah.
I have them convincing dumb people that they're terrorist groups and then getting them to do fake terrorism.
Sabotaging them.
I can think, what else does the CIA do? Like, I'm sure there's some covert shit that's good, but anytime we get a leak, we see the bad shit.
Yeah.
So it may be a confirmation bias, but every single time there's one of these fucking leaks, it's because they're doing some shit behind the scenes that people don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I think that's inherent in the fact that it is a leak because if there's no good things to leak because people want you to know about the good things. Maybe the CIA is different because they do all that like secret shit. But I think that the fact that it is a leak is nobody's gonna leak. Walmart, we're leaking Walmart's amazing to their customers or amazing to their employees. Like
we hacked Starbucks and we found out they're gonna pay for everybody's college.
Yeah, like
it never happened.
Yeah, they would tell you that they're gonna pay for the college.
You're right.
But it's the secret shit that they don't want you to know that requires it to be leaked.
So is this one of those cases where it's like sunlight is the best disinfectant? Like I love that term because when it comes to any of these organizations doing something that's untoward, whenever it's brought into the light, we usually address it.
No. 100% disagree. Like you said, how many of these papers have come out? And how much shit has changed since then? Not a fucking thing. Like we all get our little jolly rocks off. Like you said, we started this conversation by saying this isn't anything we didn't already know. We already knew all this shit was going down. And then now they bring it to our face and then we all go, yep, see, told you.
I knew it.
Out here. And then we're on to the next. And then we just fucking forget about it, because it's a far cry from like knowing it's happening to like getting it changed.
Well, there has been legislation that's been put forward by different governments around the world, especially in the EU, to combat stuff like this. Whether or not those legislations will pass, I don't know enough about those governments and where they are politically. But I think that it's mostly just a talking point. And I think that in most cases, if it's coming out in like the mass media, like I just don't believe in journalism anymore. Like back in the day when you would like really expose some shit, but now, you know, like the Watergate scandal, like you just like expose this shit. But now it's like, I don't really feel like anything comes out that they don't care if you know about it.
They want you to know. Right?
Yeah, like, you know, like I said, like we technically already knew a lot of this stuff was happening. It just, you know, it just outlines specific people, I guess. But some of the other stuff comes out and you didn't know it was happening, but then you still really can't do anything about it, even if you'd like to.
I would like to point to Edward Snowden, because my brain immediately was like, yeah, but then we started talking about digital privacy and data. But they're still harvesting all of our data, and they control all of our private information. There's no law that says they can't just activate my webcam or just turn on my microphone and my phone. They can do that still.
Yeah, and they do. And they do. Yeah, it's only gotten worse since Snowden said anything. And like that's the funny thing about it is like if Snowden really did anything that was like super, super bad, they would just assassinate him. It's not like we don't assassinate people in Russia anyway. So it's like it's not like. So they were like, Snowden leaked that we were listening to their phone calls. What the fuck are they gonna do? Like, they're gonna scream and they're gonna whine.
Listen, I'm listening to all their phone calls right now. They're not talking about doing shit.
They're a bunch of bitches.
Bunch of pussy ass bitches. They're not doing
shit. Or it's
shit.
like you talked about with the Clinton thing. Like the Clinton thing was
the Podesta email.
Yeah, were like specifically timed to hurt that campaign.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Lucifer 2.0 leaked them. Yeah, Roger Stone was involved from what I hear.
Right, you know what I mean? He was like, yo, this is a so like you said, they wanted that to happen. Like they're not going to like necessarily fight against it. I mean, you got half of your Congress and your Senate and everything that were just
if the deep state is really as entrenched and powerful as people think it is, and I'm not like a super deep statist or whatever, but I think that there's a shred of truth to that conspiracy. They're not going to let some shit to come out that they don't want you to know about. Yeah.
I don't even like to think
that's why when you were talking about those 9/11 papers that were coming out, and I was like, I don't really think there's going to be anything earth-shattering in there.
Heavily redacted.
Yeah, like, you know, it's going to be, we found some more crazy weirdness.
Well, like you said, the idea of the deep state and it being a conspiracy theory is kind of a joke. If you just think of the deep state as programs we don't know about within our government spending billions of dollars, they've admitted that multiple times.
Yeah, everybody knows that there's black budgets off the books, and it's like
billions of dollars, millions and billions are being spent and being lost and being unaccounted for within the Pentagon, and we just accept it.
I want to take you seriously, but every time I look back, your beanie goes further. Like it started off as a normal beanie, but then every time I look back, it's like LeBron's receding hairline.
Oh, that's so funny.
Every time he makes it to the finals, it just goes.
I've been wanting to fix it this whole time, but I'm like so into the conversation.
Yeah, it was good.
Hey, speaking of Clinton, though, did you guys see that thing when she went to that university? She was like named as the first woman chancellor at Queen's University.
She had a beautiful gown on.
Yeah. She had a very nice regal robe that a child was carrying up the stairs.
It looked beautiful.
It looked beautiful. And there was a whole crowd outside chanting like war criminal and throwing stuff at her. And there's a hilarious picture of her making this like, maybe you can see it, like just look up Hillary Clinton chancellor appointment or something like that. Because
you immediately made me think of "Let's Go Brandon." This is the fuck Joe Biden chat they've been rebranding.
It's a hilarious photo because like it's a perfectly timed photo. The kid's making this weird, like creepy smile, and then she's looking like she's making like a proclamation, walking down the medieval streets, like,
it's like a great
peasants.
Like a great National Enquirer cover.
Yeah, sure.
You just add some bags under her eyes.
I saw a good one of this for Bush. Is it this one?
No, it's that one that you're hovering over. Oh God. Do they have it big? Oh.
She trying to be coy. Look at this robe.
That shit fly as fuck.
Oh my God.
That shit's so fly.
Look at this kid's face.
Oh, where's the good one?
It looks like he's about to take a peek. Yeah, he's about to lie.
That's great. That's
got to be a meme.
Oh, it's memed. That's how I found it. It was a meme. But like, she just looks like she's like, stand back. you foul creatures. And the kid's like, yeah, that's right, get back.
Yeah.
She looks like she's a really mean teacher at Hogwarts.
Yeah, she's like the female Professor Snape.
Dead ass.
I like how she's being followed around by a child from the Pied Piper.
Yeah.
I don't know what's up with these clothes.
It's like some Three Musketeers shit.
But back on this Pandora thing, I saw this in the article. I don't know if you caught a glimpse of it, so I'm going to propose it to you. I know he already knows. How much money do you think is being held offshore? Estimated.
In this one leak?
In this leak, like compared to this data, like they say, like they estimate how much is being held
globally
in these like dark money, in this dark money situation.
And these secret tax haven places.
All right, so if I think about it like, okay, there's some Saudis who are trillionaires. Okay. Like they're probably like the Saudi royal family's probably worth about $1 trillion. It's going to be in the billions. I'd say tens of billions.
Tens of billions.
It's not a bad guess.
It's not a bad guess. Estimates by economists range from $5 trillion to $32 trillion.
Interesting.
With the higher end representing more than a third of the entire GDP.
That's global domestic product.
A third of all monies is being hidden away from you peasant fucking fucks and your taxes.
No, it's not a third of all monies like it exists. It's like the GDP is how much you produce in a year. So like America is like 35 trillion. The economy produces $35 trillion worth of GDP basically. And so like globally it's 30, it's it's a third of the whole pie of like what everybody produces all over the world.
Yeah. A third of it. A third
of it. They just like, we're just gonna tuck this.
Damn, but like, imagine if you could just report a third less of your income to the government. You know what I mean? Like you would be catching some serious break. Look, the equivalent of 60% of Russian GDP is held offshore, compared with about 15% in continental Europe. That Russian oligarchy shit, they got that shit figured out. They don't even have to like persuade or nothing. They're just like, hey, let's make a new law where we can just not pay taxes.
That's why you know we consider places like China and Russia as the American government, we consider them to be havens for terrorism because in Russia, hackers are allowed to hack any other country that Russia doesn't.
Yeah, fuck with.
Yeah, or that doesn't
even the ones that they fuck with.
Well, like Ukraine, like you would totally be allowed in Russia. Yo, go fuck with Ukraine, make Russia great again. As long as you're not hacking Russia, go to town. You want to start a fucking bot farm? You know, you want to influence an election?
Yeah.
Are you doing it the way we want you to? We'll give you some money. You know, like they'll even slide you a couple $1,000.
Right out of the black fund. You know?
Yeah. Right out of a third of all GDP in the world.
I mean, that's crazy. Like I said, I would have estimated in the billions as well. You know, I probably would have given it 100 billion or so. But I mean, 5 trillion, 13, like that's kind of even hard to fathom. Really.
The fact that the margin of error is $27 trillion is fucking insane. That's fucking insane.
And you know what it makes
That's enough money to run our government for fucking like 20 years.
Right?
And we're like the most big, advanced, bloated, fucking most pay for our own shit.
And country. It reminds me of like when people try to estimate YouTuber income or something. They're like, they think they make $10 million. And PewDiePie's like, yeah.
This is what this is interesting because in the talk about leaks recently, like when we were going to talk about these papers, I told Mac, I was like, you know what I want to bring up too is like in all of these other leaks, there was recently a Twitch leak where some hackers got in and released Twitch's source code, and they also released basically the financials of every single person who's a streamer.
Oh, wow.
So they showed, all right, who's the top streamer? How much does he make not only in the past year and a half, but how much did he make last month? And that went all the way down to the bottom. Out of all of those people, there's 8.8 million like streamers, right? Who would be considered like streamers.
Actively
streaming. Get on once a week or 3 times a month, whatever. Out of all of them, 8.8 million, the top 1,300 make 99.8 or 99.98 or so, like some ridiculous amount.
Pretty much all the money on Twitch.
Yeah.
So it's the 0.02%.
Yeah.
Make all the money.
Yeah.
And that is so indicative of everything, of our society as a whole. There's like, if you think about Twitch as a microcosm of just American billionaires and millionaires, it's like, there's like couple thousand. There's like 1,000.
But
and they make all the money, and then all the other 8.8.
No, I was
million.
actually telling him this when we were talking about this Bloomberg article a few days ago. But the amount of money that the top 1% makes is far less than the 99% combined. So like most of the money is held in the 99%. It's just that that's a lot of fucking people. So it all like adds up.
Yeah.
It's like little tiny ants,
Yeah.
and then there's like one giant crocodile.
Yeah.
yeah.
And to clarify my number too, I want to make sure I get it right. This was 0.02% make over $52,000 a year, which is the average in America.
Wow.
So they make a living wage. Like
Yeah.
the average living wage is made by that top 1,200 people, and everyone below that makes less than that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of interesting to see that, like, if you want to make a living doing Twitch, you're probably going to fall in the 8.7999 million who aren't going to make a fucking living on Twitch.
This is a huge point, though. This is a huge point because do you think Twitch set it up that way?
No, in no way did Twitch say only these 1,200 people are going to make this much a year. It's just the way it shakes out.
It's just the way
Just
it
the
shakes
way it
out.
shakes out.
And it's the Pareto principle, and that's what I'm like when I see people and they're really angry about this, like, well, the 1% have all the money and all this stuff. Now, obviously, that system is probably a little bit more corrupted in that sense, but there's a lot of people who always make that argument that even if you redistributed all the wealth across every single person on the planet, it would eventually just kind of make its way back up to that 1% because it's some weird way that the system just works where it's just like that tippity tip top. It's like sugar in the
you have to remember that the 1% isn't like a static category. Like people move in and out of the 1%. It's one of the most volatile financial categories that you can present. Most people are only in there for 1 or 2 years based on, maybe you like
Twitch
sell a bunch
canceled.
get canceled or, you just sold your mansion that your grandfather left you or some, like there's lots of different ways. There's like less than 100 people that stay in the 1% all the time.
Right.
And those are like the billionaires, like Jeff Bezos and shit.
Right.
And like also the fact that I think that it's not really just like the system, like that's just like, I feel like that's inherent in just humanity and just in species in general. Like a very small amount of people are like really fucking valuable and everybody else is like, not really as valuable to everybody else. You're valuable to your family and your friends and shit, but like on an economic scale, like there's some people that provide a lot more value to people than other people.
Because even if you take the 1% and break that into another 100% category, the top 1% of the 1% have like the
way more money than
scheme that plays out in just that little stuff. Like there's some weird thing about what they say that cream always rises to the top.
Philosophically speaking, this is a great way for you to tell somebody like, hey, find the thing where you're in the top 0.02%.
Exactly.
Whether that's, I'm just like a really good person in my deli who can slice meat.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Run
if
that.
that's true, run that shit. Be that deli girl. Go out there, slice that meat. So it's like,
100%.
if you can find a way to like get, because I mean, here I would say, okay, I want to be a writer. Can I be in the top 0.02% of people who write books? Maybe.
Yeah.
I believe in myself.
Because that's true. Like the majority of book sales come from like 3% of authors. Stephen King being one of them.
Yeah. But it's a hard thing to do because I had to come to this realization. Like first 25 years of my kind of adult whatever. Like as far as I can remember, I was like, I'm going to be a billionaire out in this bitch. I'm going to be one of the world's most influential, richest people. And it's now I've come to the realization, I'm like, I'm probably not that guy. Like, I'm not that, like, I'll probably do pretty well for myself. And, I live a very comfortable life as it is now. But I just had to come to that grips that, like you said, that's not my game, right? Like, that's not where I can be that top 1%. Now, in something like this realm or in, like, my coaching realm and stuff, like, I feel, like you said, I have, like, this idea that, like, I could make it to the cream of this little pie here. But as that other big game, it's just hard for some people. Like, I'm going to be the best basketball player ever. And I'm like, you just don't got
just focus it, like it just zoom in a little bit more because it's like, okay, do we want to be a successful podcast? Yeah. Could we be in the 0.02% of all podcasts? Maybe, but we could definitely be in the 0.02% of our category of podcasts.
Yeah.
If you want to look at, I want to look at podcasts where there's 3 guys who talk about current events and, or dangerous ideas or whatever we want to categorize ourselves in, entertainment. Yeah, we could definitely make it into the 0.02% of that. Focus in.
That's why people always like when I see my music friends and stuff, they're like, I'm on the top of this Latin hip hop. Latin
That's funny.
Hip hop under 100,000 subs. I'm at the top. And I'm like, hey, you winning, dog.
Charlotte metal groups. My brother's band was killing it.
Boom.
Killing it.
You know what I mean? It's definitely about specifying. But, we always think of ourselves in the grand, like you said, you really be sitting at home being like, well, why Jeff Bezos got so much money? Like, bitch, shut the fuck up. Like, you and Jeff Bezos are in like a completely different stratosphere of like,
what you do.
Yeah,
like
right.
That's like the woman who's like the best sandwich maker at the deli is the best sandwich maker at the deli. And she might even be like community famous. Like, oh yeah, we get Amber's sandwiches at the bomb.
Deborah's sandwiches.
Yeah, they're the shit. You gotta go down to Deborah's Deli. Yeah. But Jeff Bezos is like selling everything to everyone all the time.
Right.
Like, why wouldn't he be a billionaire? Like, and if you look at the people who are up there, Bill Gates. Well, what did Bill Gates do? He just gave Microsoft to billions of people. It makes sense that he's rich. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
and definitely, if you look at the timeline, it'd be like, oh, well, Jeff Bezos was the guy who had the best book-selling website.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, like he was in the 0.02% of book websites.
Yeah.
He was like the Google of selling books online because at the time when he started that, everybody was like, "You're gonna buy a book online? Like, that doesn't make any sense." But now it's like, who goes to a bookstore? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, even like I bet you Gary Vee is in the 0.02% of people buying and selling NFTs.
Right.
Probably.
Yeah,
and that's so micro-focused, but it's a realm where he could eventually be as big as Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
He could take that and keep going.
I think of it as like the fish in a pond kind of analogy too. Or like, leaving junior high and going into high school.
Yeah.
It's like you can always jump ponds as you get to that top, and then you be like, because like Austin was this for me. I lived in Austin and I felt like, was I really there? I don't, but in my scheme or view of that situation, I was like, man, I can't get any bigger in this little ecosystem here. I want to jump to a bigger ecosystem where there's more opportunity, and I feel like I could climb that ladder. But but I think that you said starting with your narrow focus, like you said, I think we could become the best 3 Averagely Intelligent Dude podcasts, and then from that point, maybe I can leap from bookstores to selling everything or some shit,
I could be the best new novelist or the best new screenwriter or whatever, and then I could branch that into, hey, I'm the best guy in this area.
Yeah, exactly.
And then eventually, that's you just build upon those wins. That seems like a good philosophically. I know we got a little off topic,
but it's just a very interesting point. Like,
don't hate the 1%.
I love
you
that,
could get
that
there.
Twitch example. I will be using that when we talk about 1% and stuff because it just seems to happen that way. But people have this skewed vision of it,
and it happens everywhere under all kinds of different systems, like even in animal hierarchies, there's the alpha male and he mates with every female and all the other dudes don't mate. And if they feel like, like I'm good enough to have a mate, but I can't quite beat that guy up. So I'm going to leave this herd and I'm going to go start my own herd and I'm going to steal some weak alpha's girl and I'm going to be the alpha.
Dude.
So it's fill my group with a bunch of betas.
That's just how it is. And like Jordan Peterson talks about, like hierarchies aren't, anytime you have values, there's immediately hierarchies because people value different things. And so it's like, just because Jeff Bezos is on the top of the whatever, like money hierarchy doesn't mean that he's like the most likable guy. Right. Like bet you if you talk to a lot of people in Jeff Bezos' private life, they'd be like, hey, he's kind of a dick.
That was my favorite
thing.
Like
there's people that don't like Jeff Bezos as a person too.
Yeah. People are like, man, Michael Jordan is the great. I'm like, yeah, but he suck at taxes though. Motherfucker be a shitty ass accountant. You know what I mean? Like,
Facts.
Just because he's a great basketball player and reached this tip top of that doesn't mean you're like some god human being.
I mean, look at him in baseball. He was trash.
Yeah,
he was a bad baseball player.
Real quick, I gotta slide my other example is Earth. Earth is my favorite one too because everything that's ever happened on the entire planet has happened in the top 1% of the planet.
Yeah.
The rest of it's just like fucking molten lava and rocks and shit or whatever it is.
Equal justice for the Earth.
It's a great point.
All layers.
Socialize every layer of Earth.
We're gonna have to send some of you people down there to be subterranean.
Well, it's just because y'all don't know about the deep underground military bunkers.
Yeah, there's other shit going on out here. You're just not hip.
But
that's the 0.001% of what's not happening on the surface of the Earth.
Exactly. Yeah,
like magma and CIA is basically all that happens under the Earth's crust.
I love it. It's like any way you choose to categorize. It's like, okay, if you want to measure from the top of our atmosphere down to the bottom deepest part of the ocean, water's only in the 0.02%. Like, I love this example.
Yep,
there's like barely any land on the entire planet.
It's the universe. I mean, all this space out here, and there's only one Earth popping.
Yeah, Earth is the 0.02% of the galaxy that's livable.
Yeah. So, you've already made it to the top 1%.
Out of all the species, humans
made it to the top 1. So it just happens like that, and so I'm not surprised Twitch, played out in that instance too. But one of the other, to get us back on this one idea, that I immediately thought, like, this is also justification for why I always hate when people are like, tax the rich. I'm like, rich people don't fucking pay taxes. Like, stop with that. That doesn't work, because it's like, I wish it worked.
But they do, though. They pay the most tax.
But that's just because they have all that money.
Right.
If you look at just like percentage wise of their income, it's
but
different.
But it just depends on how you break down the percentages.
Exactly.
Because
that's
the top 1% pays 41% of the income tax.
Correct. But they own like 99% of the money. So it's like, if I own 0.0000001% of the economy and I'm only paying 1% of the economy's taxes, I might be getting taxed 10 times as much as the richest guy.
Yeah. Yeah, when you think about your fair share, right? Like you said, aggregate, sure, but your fair share, it's like how? And
tax the rich is dumb. Let's tax the fucking corporations. Yeah. How about that? Let's tax.
They're all up in these Pandora Papers.
Well, that's even harder to do. Like, taxing, it's really easy to get out of taxes as a corporation because you sell things to other people, usually services or products. So even if they close all the loopholes and it's like, you're going to give this money to the IRS, you just raise your prices. Like, corporations out of any entity pay the least amount of taxes, because really, even though they could show you, like, look, I paid all these taxes, and it's like, yeah, but your prices went up in the exact same amount that we raised your tax rate. Yep. So like, and not to mention the handful of times in modern history that we've lowered the tax rate across the board, but mostly for rich and wealthy people, the tax revenues go up because they feel less need to do all these loophole shit, because it's a lot of work and it's really expensive to hire a really good accountant to hide all your money. If they're going to steal less of it, then you're more inclined to just be like, all right, well, fuck it then. It's not worth it to pay for this lawyer if I'm only going to pay less in the taxes.
Happened to California. I mean, California has seen a mass exodus of wealth from that state. Like, even Elon Musk supposedly is moving Tesla to Texas and is supposed to be not shutting down, but moving SpaceX operations more into Florida and Texas. That's just what they're gonna do. Like, and like you said, you can judge them all you want to and be like, that's fucked up, but you would do it too. Yeah. I know I would. If I'm living in a state and all of a sudden my tax burden goes up 45% or some shit, I'm just gonna be like, man, South Dakota looking pretty nice.
We saw it happen here. Yeah. Our manufacturing sector of America in the 80s and 90s, once like NAFTA happened, they were like, oh shit, we can just go to China. We'll just install some nets to catch the people jumping to suicide outside of the Chinese sweatshop, put some 12-year-olds in there, we're going to make a ton of money.
Good to go.
And America's going to let it happen.
Yeah.
Because...
well,
good old American capitalism.
It's just like Thomas Sowell said. If you give people wiggle room, they're gonna wiggle.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean,
it sounds like you want some regulations.
No, I don't. That's what I'm saying. Like, well, I do, but I want the regulations to be different.
I want some fair practices. Yeah. I want some, like, if like it feels good to buy fair trade coffee, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm not contributing to the death of people or the subjugation of a group of people or whatever. Let's just have fair trade. If America's economy was organic, pasteurized, farm-raised, fair trade, I would be much more likely to consume it.
Until the papers leak that they just slapped the sticker on it and said this is fair trade coffee,
Well, turns out Coca-Cola was behind this.
But not only that, but those products are more expensive because you can't do all that cheap labor and shit. So who does that really affect? the rich people can afford it, but the poor people, like, you start increasing the price of everything because it's morally good, and all the poor people are now footing the bill for it because the rich people don't look at prices anyway.
Yeah. These rich corporations,
it's a tricky situation.
Rich corporations. How many times have you seen a headline where it's like, pharmaceutical company is going to pay $27 million in damages, or BP is going to pay $1 trillion, or they've got the fucking money to pay these fines. Yeah. Put that in my fucking government as a tax and do something good with it.
Yeah.
Or hear me out. Give it to Jeffrey Epstein. Let him build an island.
I'm definitely going to be hitting on this. It almost feels like the same conversation that we're going to hit on a little bit later with this R. Kelly shit. Like, because it's the same type of shit playing out.
Yeah, some people do it with money. Other people do it with children.
Yeah. Or just people. Yeah.
Yeah, even older people.
Well, I mean, it has money too, but... but my point is,
Yeah, didn't he get, like, racketeering charges?
Yeah, he did. We're talking about it. I'm just saying, like, remember the when you were talking about, like, hitting him with a fine. Like, it doesn't fucking work for, like, somebody. Like, I saw that. Fines were a tax on the poor. And I just didn't really understand. But I was like, damn, that makes sense. Like, a speeding ticket fucking annihilates you this month. Like, a speeding ticket, you're like, fuck my life. Well, you got Elon Musk, like, just going out and burning 200 into 35 for the fun of it. Because, like, what the fuck? You're like, oh, thank you. Speeding ticket. You know what I mean? It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was, I posted in my stories, like, a meme where Sailor Moon was holding up this note. And on the note, somebody had typed any punishment for a crime that is monetary based is inherently aimed at the poor people,
right? Because
rich people it doesn't matter to them, and like you said, even when it comes to corporations, you're gonna tax them. Oh, you have to give up $100 million for that oil spill. They make $132 million a year, so that's like, oh man, next year's yes, we're not gonna be able to give out Christmas bonuses, but we're on track to make 150 next year, so I think we'll be all right.
Think about the cognitive loop, too, of like, okay, I'm a rich person. I'm driving in my car. I get a speeding ticket. Doesn't affect my mental health or anything to do with my life in any way. Yeah. Now, I'm a poor person trying to become a rich person. I'm working hard every day. I'm struggling. I'm hustling. I'm trying to start a business. I got all these schemes going on. I'm trying to pick myself up by my bootstraps. I get a bill. I get a ticket. Ruins me. Yep. You know what I'm saying? I have to shut down all these. And it's like the mental health of that. It's a cognitive loop. If you're one of these poor people who are scared of getting pulled over by the cops and it happens to you and it ruins you financially, how are you going to get out of that cycle? There's no easy answer to that. And it's like, oh, well, you should just be a rich person. It's not the only answer I have.
You just had more money.
And for me, it's funny because I think about myself specifically. And it's like I drove for years in very shitty cars that could never pass an inspection with no registration and sometimes no insurance. And I've been busted plenty of times. And I've had to pay the fine. I've had to go down to the courthouse, drop $340 on sorry. And I don't even sometimes have to provide them with I got it fixed.
It's a completely victimless crime. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
And sometimes it turns out, let's say I could drive and get 2 tickets a year, right? That might be less money over the course of the car's life than it would cost to fix the car enough to get it registered every month and or inspected and get it registered. So
because it's also cost prohibitive to register your car sometimes. Like there's just so many things that go into it. Like, that's why I don't like how convoluted. Like, have you ever seen a picture of, like, the law, like, the book of laws for the United States?
Did you see the $3.5 trillion bill?
Yeah, it's a whole fucking library of shit. And it's like, who could ever possibly... That's why lawyers get paid so much in this country. It's so fucking complicated. Yeah, you're never going to sit down and figure this shit out. Like, somebody had to pay you to do that. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it.
So they can hide all their loopholes.
Exactly. It's funny how it's almost as if... With money, you can almost control anything. Yeah. You can control the language. Yeah. If you have enough money, you can manipulate and control the language to such an extent that you can find a loophole. Or you could manipulate the language in so much that you could get free government funds. It's like, you remember that guy that used to have the infomercials and he had the jacket with all the fucking question marks like the Riddler? And he was the guy who sold you a book. He sold you a book, and it was like how to get free money from the government.
I don't remember that.
Oh, hilarious!
You do. I've even brought him up as a meme on this show one time. I'm gonna pull him up right now.
Yeah, I would love to get for reference because that guy is a great example of. He just literally was like, "Oh, I figured something out that got me money. I'll just." figure out a way to get more money.
It's
figure out
just
a way to get more money.
What was that guy's name?
Controlling the language.
From The Big Short.
This guy, look at it.
Do you know that Nike shoes, Apple Computer, and even H. Ross Perot have used government money programs to help make their millions, and you can too. I'm Matthew Lesko, and you probably see me on Oprah, Larry King, or Letterman talking about government money programs. Well, my new book shows you 15,000 programs you could use to change your life. You can get a better job, get an education, or start your own business. Next year, the government's going to give out over $350 billion, and those who know about the programs are the ones who get the money.
I'm getting big sexual predator energy from this guy. He just looks like somebody that's going to get caught beaten off at a fucking theater or something. Yeah. That guy
Put that away, sir.
That's like the slap chop guy. You just know immediately, like, oh, you smacked a
Look at him now in HD.
Oh, dude.
That's scary. Please don't show me. That was 7 years ago. He's dead.
That
man is dead.
Watching that. But see, I mean, this is one of my favorite topics, honestly. Like, I mean, getting rich off the government, it just makes the most sense to me.
Well, especially when they leak that all the rich people
are doing
hiding all of their money.
They're doing it. So it's like, if you want, like, you know, I don't think you have to be corrupt to necessarily get rich, but you do have to, like, know how the system works and be able, again, to play the game to the best of your ability. You know, we've been playing a lot of this game, Exploding Kittens. You know, lately, and you got to play with this. It's so much fun. But we keep getting into it because I'm playing with my kid. My kid loves to like show everybody their cards. She's a kid. She's 11, so she's like leaning over the table or just holding her cards out. And you don't want to look. You know, you're trying to do the right thing. You know, and all that shit, but you look. You know what I mean? It's hard not to.
I'm not even trying to do the right thing. I just look.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's like, whose fault is it? Is it your fault for looking, or is it the kid's damn fault for not knowing how to hide the goddamn cards?
And it's funny because, like, I will never succeed at games because I have such a ridiculous sense of the game rules and the absolute
spirit
ethical like spirit of the game that even if I look at the game and it's like, oh, that's how you could win easily if you just do this thing that's very obvious. Yeah. If you're not going to do that, I'll be like, you won.
Yeah.
How did I win? Oh, it's right there.
Yeah,
it's you just do that 2 more times. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't help myself. Even in the game, my most coveted game, Magic the Gathering, very few, I'd say maybe 1 time out of 100, I've let something slip or done something that could be considered rules lawyering or something that would be slightly like against the spirit of the game. Every other time, I probably lost because I was so much of a, no, you actually have lethal if you just
I'm like
just assign the blockers correctly, you win this game.
I'm like that.
Oh, I let them trip over themselves.
And that's why I said probably gonna lose. Gonna lose at a lot of things in life.
Split screen Halo. You looking at where your homie's at
tough.
or you're not?
Absolutely.
That's tough.
I'm notorious for
because there's reflexive things that happen as a human where it's like, I just know. It's like I talk about this whenever someone is playing something in the background and it's something that I don't like or that I can't really stand for some reason. Like let's take, for example, country music. If there's this country music piped into some building I had to sit in for 4 hours, I'm going to be miserable. There's no way, like with certain things I can tell myself, like, just don't be hot. You're fine. You can live it's hot outside, but you just think about it differently. With certain things, I can't turn it off.
Yeah.
And when it's like a TV show that's fucking stupid or a fucking song that fucking sucks, my brain just hyper focuses on it. And it's like, listen to that dumb. Listen to these shit lyrics, you know? And it won't turn it off. So with Halo split screen, it's a little different. I can't turn off the fact that I know you took that left. Your screen rotated. I had to see it.
Yeah, I see you riding around in the Warthog. I can't not see it.
I can't not see you
I'm gonna
jumping
pick up
in the
a
Banshee.
rocket launcher. I'm just saying. Yeah.
That's really funny.
You know, it's just like that.
So they're just reflexively looking at our screen? Is that what the 1% are doing when they hide all that money?
To me, when I look at it, it's a dog-eat-dog world, you know? And like I try my best to do right by humans and people and everything, but I have a hard time reflexively with the system. Yeah, when somebody threw out the word victimless crime, you know, like that's just how I see it sometimes. You know, if I evade my taxes, I know philosophically there's one less road out there. You know what I mean? Like somebody's gonna have a bigger pothole in their Detroit downtown or something that I could have like helped. But
Or there's a politician whose
Show it to me.
pocket will be a little bit lighter.
You know
like
what I mean?
it's
I
not
don't
necessarily
where that money goes,
Yeah.
what happens to that money, and I'm just like, for me, I'm like in the spirit of the game. Now, like I said, there's things I won't like. I won't scam. That's one of the things that's hard for me. I've thought about it plenty of times, but I'm just like, I can't do it because it's like I'm like going out of my way to fuck something or somebody.
It's different than the government saying we've set aside $4 million for small business loans to this.
And if
that's different.
That's
different. That's why that guy's got all those question marks on his suit.
Yeah.
He's out here trying to sell you the book. That's like, yo, they're giving away $350 million.
You know what I'm saying?
And that was in the 90s.
Yeah, you know how much you think it is these days.
Yeah.
we just passed another $3.5 trillion bill. You know, wouldn't you like to know where that money's gonna go and if it could maybe end up in your pocket? So it's just like. I mean, if the corporations are going to do it and it's not, I just look at, for me, I'm always very logical. And I'm like, okay, what can I do? I could protest. I could scream at these rich people and just be like, what you're doing fucking sucks. Like, that's not going to do anything. Or I could just play the game too and then get rich and then do it differently or try and use my influence to change the game or something. To me, it always just seems more logical. Like, what do they always say? Like, you can't beat them. You know what I mean?
Join them and take them down from within.
That's all you can do is infiltrate, sabotage.
Now, a lot of times, though, you see where the power corrupts. I would say that, like, if you were of the mindset of, like, I won't scam people, but, I'm going to take what I think is rightfully mine and what's set aside and, get my nut in this world. If you got a ton of nuts and then you start doing things that keep other people from getting up there, like actively suppressing other people from getting to your position, that is fucked.
Yeah.
Like that's actually like I would consider you a bad person at that point.
I got to agree.
But if you're taking that and you're trying to, like, I look at somebody like Killer Mike. Love Killer Mike. Great, not the best rapper in my opinion, but just a great man. I've watched a lot of his things, and he's all about his community and his local municipalities and things like that. He's so informed and he's so charitable in those realms. And it's like, I feel like I would go to sleep happy, which I think the ultimate goal in life is to live it, to be happy and to live your life.
I gotta agree.
If I had hundreds of millions of dollars, I just could not see myself being a poisonous person. But I don't have that money.
Yeah. That's tough.
If I had that money, would I be a poisonous person?
Hard to say.
Are you gonna keep a bank account in the Cayman Islands? Let's just flat out. You got $100 million, right? Do you keep a bank account?
Give me $52,000 a year, and I will be Mother Teresa. I will be the most moral, charitable, lovable person just for $50K a year.
Yeah.
And that's like, I've never made $50K a year.
Yeah.
And per year, the most I've ever made was like in the 30s, and that's when I was getting tax-free money overseas fighting a war.
Yeah.
And I'm a pretty typical person.
But that's charity. Like I said, just taxes. Like, just for tax. I mean,
if I had $100 million, if I had $1 million, and you told me you have to give $200,000 of it to help America run because you have so much money, and you have to live off of $800,000. Now, if I built my way up year by year, I might feel pretty offended. But right now, being someone who's never made more than like $35,000 in a year, I could give a fuck less if you take that $200,000. Please take 3. I'll give you more if it makes sure that my kid goes to a school with up-to-date books or drinks clean fucking water or has a safe transportation
you have $1 million
system.
now, though, so all that stuff is already afforded for you.
Doesn't matter.
Like, you don't need the system to produce all that.
Started from the bottom.
Yeah,
now
you
here.
want to help them
I'm
there.
looking down there, and I want to I want to be that rising tide, and like. Maybe it's because of the way I've lived my life, but I could just not imagine having $1 million, someone coming to me and being like, you need to pay your fair share of taxes, and me being like, no, I'm going to put it in the Cayman Islands.
Well, I think you definitely pointed to that. You pointed to the reasoning in that when you were saying, like, people forget too, like, your lifestyle tends to follow your income, like it moves up with you. So when you do have this $1 million, it's not like you just have $1 million sitting around. You tend to live that lifestyle, and so when you have 200,000 coming out, it feels a lot to you the same way it feels to a poor person that, like, I was gonna do something with that money. Like, I had to pay my XYZ, like my housing payment or whatever, right? So I mean, I think that it does impact them, but maybe not to the same extent. And there's a certain group of people that don't feel it at all, and whatever. But what about you, Mac? Where are you at with it?
I'm not paying no taxes. Cayman Island for days.
Yeah, I'm going Cayman Islands, baby. And that's what's funny is like I don't see that as like you're a bad person. Like if you had hundreds of millions of dollars and you want to put money in the Cayman Islands, I see that as your ideology or your basic set of principles say that giving money to the government in your eyes is fuckery. It's bullshit. Yeah. It's not right. So I don't see you as like
he would give money to people. Like Mac would build a school.
You would be a humanitarian. Yeah. I 100% believe you would do wonderful things. Yeah. You'd be like, yeah, I'll give 10 grand to help build a community garden. Right. I see you doing that. Yeah. So you're not a bad person. Some of these motherfuckers are bad people.
Some of them are.
Some of them are bad people. But we cannot say just because you hide money in the Cayman Islands, just because you got leaked in the Pandora, just because Twitch pays you $1.3 million a month, doesn't make you a bad person.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I got my own motivation. Like I said, I would consider myself a good person. I'm very charitable already at the status quo that I'm at right now. But I definitely have money in the Cayman Islands. But I'm also the guy who wants another passport. Like, it's more like out of fear for me. Like, I'm just afraid that the government one day is going to be like, we want all of this.
Yeah, well, because it's not unheard of, for just like you running a profitable business in Ghana somewhere or in Uganda. You're an Indian from India. You're running a business in Uganda and you're doing all right, and then the government shifts, or there's like a coup, and all of a sudden they're like, we're gonna absorb all private business into the government. Now you don't know shit. Now you don't have nothing.
Now you broke.
And then they're like, and we're gonna kick out all you rich Indians, and you're like, I'm not even rich anymore. You just took all my shit. And so it's like, but the funny thing about it is that when that happened, that's actually a very true story in the 70s. When that happened, a lot of those Indians moved to like Britain, and within a decade or two, they were doing pretty good.
Yep.
Uganda's economy crashed.
Yep.
Total shit fest.
Because like we said, that it's that principle, or like the ability to do that goes with the person.
With the person, right? Yeah. Like once it's set up and it's all operating, it seems easy to run. But and that's why a lot of people get upset, like, oh, the CEOs or the shareholders get so much money or whatever, and it's like they're willingly being paid that money from the other people. So like it's not about asking yourself why they get paid that much. It's about asking yourself, what are they doing to, or not like how they get paid that, but like what exactly is in the minds of the people paying them that money. Like obviously the business owner thinks that guy's so good at running his company to pay him $10 million a year. He must be making more than that. Otherwise he won't have a business very long.
Yeah. But I forgot what I was.
Well, I have a great point, because we were talking about this, the economy and these things like that. And what you made me think of was like corporations are people.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They can spend money like people. They could be like, they're like
own
a person.
Things like people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a single entity.
People can go to jail for committing crimes.
The business.
Can we corporate prisoner? What if you're a corporate jail? That's CEOs going to jail. What I'm saying is like, when you become a prisoner, we live in a government where we have slaves. If you commit a crime, you can then become enslaved by the government.
Can we enslave your business?
Can we enslave your business, your corporation? Exactly. That's what would.
This is a government business.
If I was a business owner, if I wasn't just a rich person, say I was a business owner, if I was Elon Musk and I had all my business in America, and I thought that there was any chance that my business could be taken over and enslaved by the government, I wouldn't want to be here. And if you think about the way our government works, I think that could happen. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon or if it may ever happen, but it certainly can. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we could take a corporation and enslave it.
No, that's true. And that's actually kind of a cool idea, honestly, to think about, like being able to imprison a business, I'm
going after Duke Energy.
Suck that up. I mean, obviously, I don't trust the government at all, so I feel like that could get manipulated pretty nasty. But it's kind of a cool, because like you said, there isn't really any, like you can go after the CEO of the business, but the business can still just like put another CEO in and keep doing its thing. It's not like we can just absorb the business and be like, you have to turn over all your profits for the next 10 years. I guess they do kind of have stuff
so
like
if
that.
like an oil company decides they're going to build a rig offshore and they have some like massive fuckery, some spill or something like that, I just don't see how it's out of the realm of possibility that the government might come in and be like, you have committed a lot of crimes, BP.
Yeah.
You're now USA BP.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just don't I don't know. That would be a tough logistical
Well, first we got to elect Bernie Sanders.
Hey, everybody got mattress money, though. That's what I was going to say earlier. And
that's a
what
good
I'm saying.
point.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
that's my whole take on this offshore shit and everything is, to me, I would do it as mattress money. Because you brought up a good point the other day, or earlier. Like, I am playing the game that's set forth, but the guy who's over there being like, put this in so I can get a loophole on my taxes type thing, like, that dude is a fuckhead to me. You know, like, honestly, that guy is a fuckhead to me. The guy who's, like, out here spending money or actively trying to oppress other people or somehow shirk their fair share, like, you're a douche. Or the guy who's like, nah, fuck that, I keep all my money offshore because fuck those poor people, I'm not gonna be, you know, like, you're a dickhead, you know. But if you were just people sometimes extrapolate all these other morals and values on rich people that they don't, you know, like I said, you don't want to pay taxes because you're poor and you feel like it's too much of a burden on you. But you don't feel like this guy who makes XYZ amount of dollars is allowed to have that same mindset. I think that's also fuckhead shit. But
that's inequality.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It is kind of. But so I mean, I see that because, you know, like I said, we all draw our arbitrary numbers. You drew yours. You were like, 50K, I'm cool. You know, I got mine. Everybody's got different numbers is where they feel comfortable at, you know. But, you know, so that's like a whole thing. But I do think it's fucking reprehensible, these people who are just like actively, again, like I said, like there's a difference between like the cards got shown and you just reflexively look or like, you know, whatever, to being like,
I created a device that sits behind you.
Right.
It tells me I have enough money to buy all of the land behind you to stand back there and look at your cards.
I think that for me, it's like, I'll use the example of the stimulus checks, like, and it kind of lends into what you were just talking about, Rod, where it's like, if I was the one to make the decision, nobody would have gotten any stimulus checks. But since somebody else made the decisions that we were all going to get stimulus checks, like you said, John, I wasn't going to poo-poo the stimulus check coming my way. Like, just because it wasn't the decision that I would have made doesn't mean that once it's, you know, and Walter Williams talks about this, where he talks about how if I was running for senator of Philadelphia or senator of Pennsylvania or something, you know, like, I can't go to them and say, the Constitution doesn't say that the federal government has the right to spend other people's money on roads or college or any of these things. So I'm not going to bring any of that money here. He's like, that money doesn't not go anywhere. All of a sudden, all the people in Connecticut get that money. And so once you make the system into where once you legalize theft, everybody steals. And so you normalize this activity. It's like, well, we normalized avoiding taxes. So now that's what everybody does. They avoid the taxes.
Yeah, just playing the game.
I keep thinking of a quote that doesn't quite fit, and I've never even seen the clip. I've just been told this by someone who's seen this clip, and it's always funny because it's about a mob wife talking to her husband on one of these reality TV shows, and the husband is asking her, he's like, "Did you get my vanilla Coke?" And she's like, "I went to the store and I didn't have a vanilla Coke." And he's like, "Look, everybody else in here's got vanilla Coke. They got to be getting it from somewhere." and like, it just makes me think like, look, all these other rich people aren't paying taxes.
Yeah.
If I'm a rich person, am I just going to pay my taxes?
Yes.
Some of them are, but not everybody. You're going to look around and be like, these motherfuckers are all drinking vanilla Coke.
Yeah.
I want one.
I kind of want a vanilla Coke.
Yeah. It's just human nature. You know, it's human nature. And I think that's why I don't think anything's going to come of this. You know, I don't think anything.
Nothing ever comes from these. We've established that.
I mean? Like,
everybody knows that NSA is spying on us and we haven't done a fucking thing about it.
The money's offshore. We talk about all the time. I've seen this happen time and time again in the military, man. Like, some of these military contracts and shit are just gross, dude. Like I said, $365 for a fucking rocking chair. It's like the most basic chair. Picture the most basic chair you can see in your brain. All right, now imagine that chair being $365 each. You know, it's like that chair. I know economics. That chair costs $12.50 to make. Like, where does all that extra money go? And it's, the military's got a black fund. So, like, everybody's got off books money, and rich people are no different. It's just the way it is. It's the way it is. But now you know about it, and you should learn about it. Read that guy's book. That's the one thing I'm taking from this podcast today. On that thing is I'm getting Matthew Lesko's book immediately after we finish this, because I do want to know how a shell company works, and I do want to know like how tax bracketing goes, and like how Donald Trump can pay $7 in taxes for the year. Like, that's
I'm just hoping for I'm hoping we could boil our government like a frog in a pot of water.
Oh, you want to flip it on them instead of them boiling us? You want to flip the pot on them?
I want to boil them in the sense I want our culture to
boil
see these leaks, that have been happening, and like one of them I just thought of, the Afghanistan papers. There was a whole leak that showed that we knew Afghanistan was a crumbling disaster that we were just burning money in, and literally top military officials were like, we have no direction. What the fuck are we doing? And they were just like, stay the course, And it's like they knew they were making a bad decision. Everyone in the chain of command didn't want to do it, but some people up at the top are like, we're making a lot of money.
Yep,
just keep trying to kill the brown people that live in the mountains.
Yep. And those are the people I don't want to give my money to, so I hide it in the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, they've set it up to where in order to hide my money from corrupt politicians, I also have to hide it from poor people who need food, and unfortunately that's what I'm gonna do.
But what I'm talking about with boiling the frog is that I'm hoping that over centuries, decades, generations, whatever it is, that we tackle this kind of shit the same way that we tackled something like racism, the same way that we tackled all these other things like infant mortality rates. Like somebody was on Bill Maher the other day, and he was talking about how the vast majority of all the things in our lives have gotten so much better over the last, bring it up to 1,000 years ago, 100 years ago, whatever you want to say. Fucking dude, we're not dying of starvation as a race of people on Earth anymore. Yeah. There's so little. I'm not saying like those people that's starving don't matter. Yeah. I'm saying if you look at the number, it's gone from here
how many people were doing
here.
It. So
and that's happened with so many things in our society that have gotten so much better. Maybe culturally we can see a shift to where the 1% are people who are fuckheads who don't put their shopping carts back, or however you want to claim, however you want to categorize the people who are doing fuck shit. Yeah. Hopefully, what if that fuckery could over the generations died out a little bit? Not saying we have to get rid of racism forever. There's still going to be people out there that are racist, but it's not as bad now as it was 50, 100, 150, 200 years ago.
Your point actually just reversed a lot of my mindset, like instantly. Like you just fucking pilled me, because I was just like, dang, like if I go about exploiting these loopholes, it makes me all that much less likely to want to do something about the loopholes. You know what I mean? Like I become complicit in it, like even though I'm like, oh, I didn't make the rule. But once I start exploiting the rule, I'm less likely to. Yeah, now I'm invested. Now I'm less likely to be like, yeah, that's fucking bullshit. I'm like, I got like $1 billion sitting over there. Like, do I really want to give up my $1 billion? Like you said, I hypothetically speaking, now I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, dissolve that shit. Like, change the rule. But once my money's over there and I'm involved in it, I do become less likely to be one of those pushers of like, let's make this better, like I said, I'm not going to be one of those guys that make it worse, but I'm definitely not going to be out there leading the charge. So that does make me think a little bit differently about that situation and like what I would do in that given circumstance, because I do want to see this stuff go away. Like I said, I do think that the system sucks, I'm just like over here being like, hey, if it's shitty, get a little dirty with it, Like,
it's so interesting because like we have similar conclusions, but for completely different reasons. Because I'm hearing you talk about how like you just change your moral quandary, like you change your stance because of that moral quandary. But we're looking at changing the things, but my idea of change for better would be to expand the loophole so that more people can fit through it. Whereas like you're like, we should shorten the loophole so that less people can fit through it. Because I don't have the moral quandary because I want everybody to not have to pay the taxes.
Right.
I'm saying the whole should be equitable.
We should have an equality of who gets to not pay taxes,
you should
which
have
is everybody.
some circle holes, some triangle holes, some star-shaped holes, like a hole for everybody to fit through.
Yeah.
A hole for every American.
I'm not going to fall down in the same conversation that we have all the time about this, but we should definitely have that conversation on the podcast because, God, I could go on for days about that.
Well, I mean, we definitely, to tie it to this, with the Afghanistan and the Pandora and the Panama and the Pensacola, whatever fucking whatever fucking papers, whatever leaks we have, we need to, as a society, we have free-flowing, infinite information access. So learn about this stuff. Watch our podcast. Do some of your own research, as I like to call it. But figure out what's going on in the world because you might be one of these millionaires someday.
Yeah, it's true.
You might be able to affect change.
Yeah.
And if you can, you want to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't want to be a fuckhead who leaves his cart
Yeah.
smushed up on the island by the handicap spot.
Yeah. It's like a dick.
Shithead.
I hate that shit.
Fucking shithead. Brings me to my favorite TikTok, cart narcs.
Cart nugs. I like that.
There's a guy.
I just thought about how long that's been sitting in your consciousness. You
Which
know, like
one?
this cart situation. Like
Just recently.
But for you to be able to pull that on a dime as the analogy that you use, it means he's just been sitting around for a while. Be like, that fucking cart guy. God damn it, man. He just leaves his cart shoved up in that island.
Yeah, go to cart narcs on TikTok. And there's a guy, he's great. He just goes, he like catches people who leave their cart and he goes, boop, boop. He always makes a little sound. Like he's a funny little, and he'd be like, boop, boop. He's like, sir, notice you haven't put your cart back. And he always calls them like silly gooses or just like kind of silly. Like he's never mean. He's always just like, well, that's such a lazy bones thing to do. And if you disregard him, and he's filming you obviously, if you disregard him or arguing with whatever, he always has a little magnetic bumper sticker he slaps on your car that's like, I'm a lazy bones who won't put my cart back.
That's amazing.
And he just uses like a mild form of shame.
That's good.
Like just a light shame sauce.
Yeah.
And I think that's hilarious.
We don't use that enough in culturally anymore.
Yeah,
Shaming.
It's
good.
Even just a light shame. If I just, it's like I don't have a cat of nine tails. I'm not whipping you like until you bleed.
Yeah,
I'm just popping you with a rubber band.
Yeah, it's the little dad smack on the back of the head. Like, hey, stop
that.
being a dummy.
Yeah. Because I feel like that guy from Pain and Gain from that Mark Wahlberg movie where he walks by that fat woman and she's on the elliptical or whatever, and he's like, I have no sympathy for people that waste their talents or whatever. And I was just like, like I have sympathy for fat children, because they're not able to control their food intake. You know what I mean? Like they don't get to choose what gets picked up and stuff. But I mean, if you're like 21 and over and you're fat, I have no sympathy.
If you're buying all your own food with all of your money and making those decisions.
Yeah, like it's.
And
it's on you.
You bought 2 12-packs of vanilla Coke?
Yeah.
What did you think was going to happen?
Because there are some people who are trying their best and doing their best and they're still just overweight, and that's just who they are, whether they got a thyroid thing or whatever. Or,
obviously medical conditions.
You can be healthy and be a big person.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I definitely look. But, as a coach, too, especially people come to me and they're all, man, I wish I could get fit, but I have a thyroid issue. And I'm like, okay, well, how many miles did you walk this week? Well, none. Well, then it's not your fucking thyroid issue, bitch. Like, shut the fuck up, walk, and then you can talk about your thyroid.
My advice would be find your bbody.
Yeah.
What's your body? Like, what makes you feel healthy? Find it. Because if your body is like, oh, I like to have a little bit of a tummy.
Yeah.
I got a little love handles, but I make it work. I'm thick. Okay, live that life. Be that healthy, thick girl.
Yeah.
I have nothing against that. But if you live a 400-pound life on TLC and you're like, accept me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I don't accept you as a human. All humanity is an experience.
Sure.
You're living your experience. I'm not going to deny your humanity, but lose some fucking weight.
But you get no sympathy from
You got to pay 2 plane tickets, people. 2 plane tickets. Your shit's spilling over. That's just common courtesy, okay? Like, that's, I'm not going to say that the airlines need to make a regulation, but that's common courtesy that if you're really, really big, you should get, and you're going to sit and coach, you get 2 tickets.
I did see this guy walking through the airport as we were traveling back, and I was just like, dang, somebody's got to sit next to that person.
And if epigenetics has taught me anything, it's that you're not only affecting yourself, you are affecting every self down the line of selves that you create, which for a lot of people in the world, we create little versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
We have offspring. That offspring is affected by not only who you are genetically, but what you do in your life. So if you live a 400-pound life that you're choosing that to affect your child. Simple as that.
I've never seen a fat child with like a fit set of parents.
Yeah, I mean, that trope doesn't exist.
Yeah, like I don't ever see like Vin Diesel and his model wife, and then they got a little like chubby son. Like it's just like.
But you do see something like even in Pain and Gain where that dude likes the chubbies. You know.
No, but that's what I'm saying. There's nothing wrong
but
with.
He was into the chubbies.
Yeah. There's nothing morally wrong with being a fat person. Like some people like to eat. Like it's not a problem. And like don't get me wrong. Like I like to throw down on some barbecue and some pie and shit.
Candy for me.
But candy. You know, like everybody's got their thing. But. You know, in the same way, like I've been seeing a lot of people post Twitter things on Instagram, and it's like really, really fat people that have gotten the vaccine saying that they shouldn't, like unvaccinated people shouldn't get health care. And I'm like, but that could totally, like, it's not hard to turn those tables and be like, well, you know, cardiovascular disease kills more people than COVID. So like you're wearing a shoe, but it's a different color. Like you're pointing at me with the red shoe, but you got a green shoe on right now.
Your kettle's getting blacker by the day.
Yeah,
buddy.
we hacked your Fitbit and we found out that you ate 7 pieces of pizza and you did not walk at all yesterday.
No healthcare for you.
Sorry, your healthcare's done for the day.
That's really funny.
Interesting. So the Kells then, huh?
The Kells.
Yeah, the Kellys.
Ooh, we definitely don't want to normalize calling R. Kelly Kells.
Yeah.
Look, DaBaby said some really sussy shit about gay people, and
he's getting reamed right now.
Hey, do you think they're gonna cancel him?
No.
Exactly. I got on a party bus a couple weeks ago, and they were banging his music.
Yeah, Chappelle talked about this, and he was just like, I was watching the clip where he's talking about going into practices and standards and practices, and then she's like, "Look, you can't say faggot on the way." And he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, no problem, my bad." And he was like, and I'm walking away, and I just couldn't help but think, I was like, "What? But I've said nigger like 100 times on this show, and you've never not once thought anything of it. But I can't say faggot."
It's the same way that he was like, oh, you know, he's talking about DaBaby in the latest special, and he mentions the fact that this man shot another man at Walmart. Now, if you know the story, these 2 kids were following him and his family around. He was holding his daughter type shit, and they were going to rob him, and he figured out that they were going to rob him, and they pulled on him, and he dusted him. But still, you killed a guy.
Yeah, that's true.
You didn't get canceled for killing a guy.
I mean, Bruce Jenner killed a guy too.
Oh yeah. Well, Caitlyn killed a guy.
Yeah. No, Bruce killed a guy.
Wait, was Bruce?
He wasn't Caitlyn.
He had not transitioned yet.
No, it was old.
He was always a woman.
You can't dead name him.
He was always a woman.
From the Ricky Gervais thing. I never heard of dead naming.
Dead naming,
so,
yeah.
Like,
and that's what I was making a joke that you can't arrest Caitlyn Jenner for a crime that Bruce Jenner did because they're not the same people.
I would say that you would technically have to take away his medals. He was always a woman.
Right.
Those are men's competitions.
Those are Bruce Jenner's medals.
Yes. Not so much that you have to divorce yourself from the male version of yourself if you transition, but more so that you have now disqualified all those male qualifications. As a female, you cannot possibly hold the men's title. I have to give that up and go fight the ladies.
You have to give that up.
I'm gonna spin this off of the fat conversation when we were talking about how, you know, you never seen a fat person raising a fat child or a fit person raising a fat child and stuff. You tend to make little U's. Well, that tends to be the case in the child predator ring as well, right? Like victims of child abuse tend to go on to become child abuse predators. And Robert Kelly seems to be no exemption to that train, actually. One thing I did not know about Robert Kelly, and everybody knows R. Kelly's in the news right now since
just got
forever.
sentenced.
Just got finally convicted. He actually hasn't been sentenced. He'll be sentenced in May, but he got convicted
looking at life
of all charges. Every charge, he was found guilty on all charges.
They dusted his ass.
Yeah, but I guess like this was interesting as I started diving into it. You know, like, yo, this dude's life, man, is like, what the fuck? You know, like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, we're talking about some Jeffrey Epstein type shit going on. I mean, we're talking like 30 years of like fuck shit, just straight fuck shit. They did this timeline thing on the AP about like his whole life essentially, and like different little bits and pieces of it and stuff. And I was like, whoa. But supposedly when he was young, 1975, Kelly begins singing in church. Around that time, years of sexual abuse by an adult relative begins, according to his 2012 memoir. And then it says that he also witnessed a rape at age 12. And so then he finally moved out of the projects of Chicago and into a prestigious Kenwood Academy, and then goes on to become, R. Kelly, obviously. So, he's a victim. And like we were just talking about with the fat stuff, it's like these things tend to perpetuate. Obviously it wasn't his mom, but, a lot of that stuff tends to stem from childhood. And that birth, like I said, what has been like a 30-year fucking ongoing situation. And that was the thing that, I got a bunch of notes of like things that jumped out to me as I was looking through this case. And I was just like, well, that is interesting.
Yeah, definitely the hurt people thing, is something I've always it's not always true. Some people are just fucking psychopaths or sociopaths or just hurt people. But in a lot of cases, especially being like, I'm very interested in serial killers, always have been. Man, you go to their early life, 90% of those serial killers either got raped or beaten or abandoned.
Yeah, it's
trauma.
And like you said, it's not like everybody. Some people process their trauma and go on to be healthy, happy adults, but left unprocessed, it really breeds some crazy ideas and of like, what's acceptable and unacceptable in your mindset, and that's what's so fascinating about this dude is like the lengths at which he went. Like I said, it really feels like a Jeffrey Epstein type situation the more I look into it, because of the lengths. And that's why he got brought up on racketeering charges, which was groundbreaking. Like nobody's ever been brought up on like, RICO charges essentially for sex trafficking and stuff. But the level of like cover-ups and stuff that this dude was going through, and like the things that he was trying to do to like circumnavigate all this heinous activity he was doing and whatnot. But my point was, the first time that this ever came up was in back in 1994, right? R. Kelly married Aaliyah, and she was 15.
And when they tried to talk to him about it, because MTV or VH1, one of these places, they were talking about it, because like R. Kelly has all of a sudden got this girl singing this music sitting on his arm who's 15. And Robert is not very...
27 at the
27. It's not acceptable.
Right.
That might have been acceptable in 1905.
Right.
But
it's so fascinating how many people acted like it was just totally like, no big deal. NBD.
Well,
I'll bring up, because the Aaliyah thing, we're gonna talk about this in a minute, because there's a lot of shit about
the Aaliyah thing shit. Is like where a lot of the juicy shit is, because if like her, like I watched Surviving R. Kelly, like a lot of people did, and the thing that leapt off the page was that first album, the first music video about like seducing an older man, and it's like R. Kelly is doing what Epstein did. He's doing what Keith Raniere did. He's doing what they all do, which is put it right in front of your fucking face.
Yeah. Hide in plain sight.
Fucking dig your fucking face in it.
It's like he tried to groom all of us. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is her debut album was titled Age Ain't Nothing But a Number.
Produced by Robert Kelly.
Produced by this dude. I'm like, yo, you trying to groom us. He's like coming out with a hit fucking album. That album went double platinum. And he was like, see, y'all like this shit? Age ain't nothing but a number. Like, y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, that's just creepy, cringy, like.
He tried to put some Bernays sauce on there. Change the social perceptions.
But I'm going to show y'all this video that I came across as I was like looking for this stuff, because.
The band interview?
Yeah, like there's some of the interviews of like them talking from back in the day. And people asking, I didn't really realize, because I as I'm looking at it now in 2021, I'm looking back and I'm like, how did everybody just let this go on? Like, what? Nobody thought that was weird, that this 15-year-old was like marrying this dude. But I guess she was really secretive about her age back then, because obviously she was being groomed to do so. But
How's everything going?
Everything's going pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, let's clear something up, because you know I've been getting a rundown on the street. Everybody seems to think that y'all are either girlfriend or boyfriend, or cousins, or friends. Let's just get the record straight.
I better go get me a white Jeep.
Well, no, we're not related at all. No, we're not. We're just very close. He's my best friend.
Yeah, cool.
Now, who found who?
In the whole wide world.
I found Leah. As a matter of fact, Barry Hankerson, my manager, who's her uncle, told me to go up to Detroit and hear her sing. Once I got up to Detroit, I didn't have to hear her sing because she was glowing. I knew she had it. As soon as she started singing, that verified it. And from there, we became here, and everything is all good.
Mm-hmm. Is Aliyah your real name?
Aliyah is my real name.
It's very unique. It's nice, though.
I think it's Muslim Arabic name.
Oh, all right. Do you know the meaning, or does it have a meaning?
It means the highest, most exalted one, the best.
All right.
So I'm going to skip through some of this stuff because some of it's not really relevant, but I was just like, that was step one. Like, even from that, she's like, so y'all like a thing? Or like, what's up with that? I'm like, why are you laughing? Like, why? Like, you should be 60 minutes-ing her right now. Like, where's your Barbara Streisand at where you just like, you know she's 15, and there's rumors out there that you guys are being sexually, but they're like joking about it. Like, it was just like, so you got, the people want to know. Are you banging? Yeah, you guys banging?
This is a pattern because I extensively researched Jimmy Savile after I listened to a podcast about him, and John Oliver, Johnny Rotten, multiple celebrities in England made jokes about Jimmy Savile fucking little kids.
Right.
Or going after underage people.
Right.
They joked about that shit way before his death. They asked him questions. Louis Theroux asked him, hey, do you like underage kids? Mm-hmm. He denied it. The BBC covered it up. The people who were supposed to investigate him killed the investigations, and then he died, and then everybody's like, he was a rapist.
Yeah.
It's like
right.
Once R. Kelly falls out of favor,
then everybody's
going to go after him. Mm-hmm. Same way. Oh, hey, it doesn't always happen this way, but you fall out of favor, and then they start looking at you a little closer because you don't hold the same amount of power that you used to hold.
Yeah, it's weird, that halo effect, right? Like, like you said, it's like everything seems on the up and up and innocent and everything, like I said.
They were joking about Cosby for a long time.
Right.
But man, he was funny.
Right. Yeah, exactly, And so that was so sketchy. Even the thing he's all like, she's like, so, y'all dating or y'all cousins or whatever? And Leah's like, well, we're not related in any way.
Yeah, it's just, like, we're not related.
They're definitely both just like Matrix swooshing these questions past them. Yeah.
It's so...
Well, that's why she gave that qualifier. She could have just said, "Are you guys a thing?"
Yeah.
But then she qualified it, gave them an out by saying, like, cousins?
Yeah, exactly.
And they were like, no, we're just best friends.
Yeah. But I couldn't help
we're wearing matching
that
outfits.
she just denied the cousin out. And like, it almost set her up too, because she didn't. No, we're not dating. We're not cousins. None of that. We're just friends.
Denied all of it.
But she was like, we're not cousins.
We're not related. He's my best friend.
And we're just really close.
In the whole world.
And he was like, the whole world.
Yeah.
And what?
He's got a really breathy way of talking to. Yeah. I went up to Detroit.
I know.
That's funny. That's funny because like he's
I
definitely.
didn't pick up on it the first time, but as we were watching it here, I was like, yo, he got that real.
He talks the way that he sings. Like if you ever like in the closet, like that whole thing. He's just like, stuck in the closet. I just want to talk.
Yeah, dude.
Finally, you're just friends.
Really
you my best friend in the whole world.
Like you imagine like. That's kind of
he's
the
harmonizing
voice. That's the voice that you imagine Joe Biden like when he leans in on those little girls' shoulders and he's like, "Yeah, you want to come back to the Oval Office?"
Michael Jackson kind of had that voice too.
Yeah, it's
that sexual predator whisper, like you said. It's like,
there was even a guy. My brother loved this clip. It was like one of those like exposing pedophile clips, and it was from Australia. And it was this man named Jeffrey who had written several books about molesting children. This man was next level pedophile. And this guy's in the street like confronting him, and he's like, "That's disgusting, Jeffrey. How do you?" And he's like, "Yes,
seen it.
I'm a dirt grub."
Yeah,
He's like, he's just got this breathy, like, yes, I like touching little boys. Yeah. And he's like, what of it? It's like, so
read my books.
Yeah.
So cringy.
If you want to know more, read my books.
It's so
like,
cringy.
It's that breathy, like, yeah, you're right. That's why when I saw the guy talking about the government programs, I was like, get a little bit of energy off of him.
The highest, most exalted. I know.
Some call me Ark.
How do you intertwine school with the career?
And / straight A student.
People who know me call me Rob.
Okay. Yeah. I know you're a straight A student. How do you mix with, studies and / artists?
Well, it's very hard to intertwine school with the career, but I do feel that education is number one.
So they acknowledge
so I
the
work
fact
hard
that she's
at
in
that,
school.
and I go to performing arts school, so they're very helpful. They've been very cooperative with me. DSA, everybody knows straight. And my parents work with me, so they help me keep my grades up.
What do your parents think about your career?
They're very happy for me that, I finally got where I wanted to get. I've been working very hard, and they've been a great support. Ever since I was a little thing, I used to run around and sing, and they've helped me. They've developed me.
Now, how do people around you act? I mean, you know how people say you've changed, and it's usually not you who've changed, but the people around you. Do you feel that kind of vibe going on?
Well, my friends at school, they've been supportive. They don't think I've changed any. They're the same. I'm the same. We're all the same.
Now, how is he to work with?
Bob is great to work with because really it's not like we work because we're like really close. So it's like just fun, really. We just hang out, sing.
I don't ever remember working.
Yeah, it's just like fun.
It seems like you had a lot of fun recording your album, but is there any song on the album that is your baby that you like more than others?
At Your Best. Their sound is very, just fell in love with.
She's running around the studio, ain't nothing but a number.
Where don't come from?
She's running around the studio one day with her friends, talking a lot of smack. Talking about age ain't nothing but a number, girl. I was like, what you trying to say? So immediately I heard the song, and I called her back 15 minutes later, told her, check this out. So we cut the track right then and there.
And for the record, you are how old?
That's a secret.
Women doesn't disclose her age.
Mentor for you, I guess.
Yeah, he is. He's my best friend, really. We've been knowing each other for around 3 years. And I met him before he came out with Born into the 90s through my manager, which is also his manager.
Right.
That's how we met. And I sang for him when I first met him. And a couple months later, we went to the studio and started working.
What was so special about her that you actually hooked up with her to actually, get that whole thing happening?
Well, I don't want to come off like she's big-headed, but it force or to be able to produce, because if you know what she was,
kind of take control because he had the experience.
Right.
And of course the talent's there, but I learned a lot from him. So hopefully around the second album I'll be able to pull out a little input. I mean, my parents always told me, and I sung a lot with my mom, but when I heard other people's views, and everyone else was telling me that I could sing, is when I really could sing.
Don't tell you.
My manager is my uncle,
right.
So he's been in the business for a while. So having him, help in this business, because you have to, know when not to go somewhere, know when to go back to the hotel or whatever. But my mom travels with me a lot, and my dad and my brother. So having them around helped me a lot. And having them my age, I wanted them to really accept me as an artist and just enjoy the music. And everybody's asking me, how old are you? And they know I'm young, I'm in my teens, but I made it a fact that I wasn't going to tell and keep it a secret. And now, I just had a birthday. I just turned 16. So I'm telling people now.
We've got the scoop.
Yeah. I'm 16, so I was really geeked about my sweet 16. So I'm telling people now, but they've accepted me, and my album's been very successful, so that's why I don't mind saying it now. That song can relate to a lot of people. Right. Like if you fall in love with someone older, or if an older person falls in love with someone younger, it's really everyone can relate to it, not just one group of people. And of course, because we knew when I came out that age would be,
the big thing,
an issue.
Open secret, huh?
You know what I'm saying? Like that's my thing. Is like people were like I said, I was looking back at this stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, she was being kind of secretive with her age. So, because R. Kelly's defense was that he had no idea that she was underage.
Which is absolute horseshit.
Preposterous.
This is preposterous.
Ridiculous.
If you've ever watched Chris Hansen, that's the first thing they say.
Yeah.
Oh, she told me she was this.
Right. You know what I mean? So, I'm just like, okay, and so for everybody who doesn't understand the full thing about this Aaliyah situation and stuff, what happened? They start working together musically and all that stuff, right? she comes out with this album, Age Ain't Nothing But a Thing. Like, supposedly they've been working together. She was as young as 13, right? They come out with that album. She was like 14 or 15. Like, I think 14 comes out the album and stuff and snap. At 15, she gets married to R. Kelly. Okay. And
in a secret ceremony,
and that later comes out that they bribed an official to get her age, like to lie about her age on the birth certificate. And then it was annulled by her parents shortly after. And then around this age, 16, when she finally is like, yeah, I'm 16. It's whatever wants to say. Like, her and R. Kelly had kind of started to go their separate ways and whatnot, right? But a lot of people have said now it's coming out that they got married because Aaliyah got pregnant and he wanted to be able to authorize the abortion and to be able to keep her from testifying against him, right? As like any type of situation. So this was all a big ploy to get himself, to protect himself from this pregnancy. They didn't want her parents to have to be the one to authorize the abortion. As a minor, she has to have some consent of an adult.
Who better than her husband who impregnated her?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Who happens to just be a lot older than her.
You know, like, and so to me, I was just like, wait, like, how is there some kind of weird law that I don't know, like a loophole where you can marry a 15-year-old and that's just like cool? It's like, oh no, we're married, so I can totally fuck her and get her pregnant, you know?
And then abort it.
In a lot of places in America, completely legal.
Yeah,
that's kind of the fucked up part. Like, we were talking earlier about, you know, these celebrities who are like, yeah, you know, this celebrity's 16, but I would totally smash, you know, whatever. I mean, technically all that shit back to a certain age is legal in all kinds of ways. In some ways, it can be as young as 14 or 15 if you have the parents' consent to get married. And if you go back 100 years, we're talking 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know, and that to me is like, as someone who looks at someone taking advantage of a 14 or a 15-year-old as an adult and getting them to like marry you, haha, got you, bitch. Like, the fact that they were doing that to 7-year-olds,
right.
It's like there's no way you can convince me that a grown man and a 7-year-old, be it male or female, can have a consensual power dynamic.
Yeah.
You just can't. You just fucking can't. That's a child.
Yeah.
And now we as a society have raised that bar up to like 15 or 16.
Right.
And, you know, who's to say in 100 years it won't be 18 or 20 or something like that? You know, we learn a lot about, you know, we're living to be older. You know, part of it is back in the day, the average lifespan was 10, 20 years fucking less.
True.
Sometimes more than that.
Because even like when you think about like those relationships back in the day, these guys were probably 20 to 24.
Depends.
And they'd be married. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. You know, I'm 100%.
Depends on the rights of the woman in that time period. Because if we go to Saudi Arabia or something like that, or ISIS or caliphate controlled Middle East today,
like a goat.
Yeah, well, you could literally just be like there was a story about the guy who joined from England. A lot of people joined from England who were just like English people. Some were just like white dudes who just joined ISIS. And one of the guys, you know, it was a famous case. He'd be calling back home to his mom all the time. He's like, I got a bride. She's 13. We just rolled through this village, fucking killed a bunch of people, and just took this 13-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, these motherfuckers are finding ways to exploit the system. Whether it's a guy joining ISIS or whether it's R. Kelly getting a couple $1 million and realizing, oh shit, I could fuck 13-year-olds. Or Jeffrey Epstein, where he's like, I'm gonna be really good at math and get some blackmail on some Wall Street guys, and then bing bang boom, I got a private island with a temple.
Yeah.
Like, it's exploits. It's exploits to the system to get what they want. Which is why when people say like, oh, you know, the Democrat pedophile human sex trafficking ring is preposterous. I'm like, you're telling me rich people don't fuck kids?
Yeah.
Where the fuck have you been?
Well,
they're fucking kids all the time.
I wanna say that too, because that's the thing. That's a topic that I wanted to branch it off into. It's just like, people make it seem like this is an entertainment issue or like a rich people issue. I think I think a lot of people fuck with kids, right? Like, your Uncle Charlie is out there molesting just as many kids, or
tons of priests.
Priests.
Tons of fucking
priests.
I
think this is a problem that stems all through our culture, but you don't hear about it. You know, like I said, when does the Uncle Charlie situation or the, you know, local Catholic church hit primetime broad news. You know, the only time it does that is when it is these prolific people who have all this influence. And I would also grant that they have this ability to do it on a more grand level, right? Because they can attract all of these children, you know, like you said, as like a just normal dude who works at Walmart and you're ugly as fuck and, you know, poor as fuck. Like, how are you gonna get
that's
all
why
of
it's
these
usually family members, because that's access, easy access.
Yeah. Whereas like when you have somebody with celebrity or with an enormous amount of wealth, they can create that same type of access.
Yeah, like even like these people who are doing these things to children who are rich and famous, if they weren't rich and famous, they would still be finding ways to abuse people.
Right.
Yep.
I watched a documentary about this guy who had killed some people in the 70s on a campus, who had like found a girl like dead who had been raped or whatever when he was a security guard. It turns out he's the one that fucking did it.
Oh yeah, I heard about this.
And when they went to get him in modern times, I don't know how many years ago it was, but they did the DNA. He was still alive. They found him because this crime had happened back in the 70s or the 80s or something. They find the guy. And there's footage from the police body cameras and shit of them going to his house to execute a search warrant. And he's old as shit. And they're talking to him through the window because he doesn't want to open his door. And he's like, I just got to get dressed. I'm old. It takes a minute. I got to put some pants on. And they're like, okay, but you know, you got to let us in, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I just got to get dressed. And he's kind of like feigning this thing. And one of the guys is just like, as he's talking to him, he kind of gets to the point where he just like opens the door and like looks in. And he's like, gun! And the guy offs himself.
Man.
Boom.
And you know what they find? That guy who had raped that woman back in the 70s and killed her, they find like terabytes.
Yep.
Like tons of gigs, like on floppy disks, on everything. And it's just pedophilia, like abuse, murder, like the deepest, darkest, most fucked up dark web shit. And this guy's got it on hard disk because he knows how fucked up it is. And this guy's in his like fucking 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, guys like this are bad, but there's 82-year-olds in Iowa who are doing just as much fuck shit. They're fucking kids. They're attacking kids.
In our unit.
Yeah, I remember we were at fucking NTC. We were at NTC, and somebody like used somebody else's laptop or something, and they were like, "Whoa, what the fuck is that?" Because it was commonplace. If people don't know this, it was commonplace to trade pornography and other assets digitally in the army. Hugely commonplace. I mean, I'm sure it happened in the civilian world, but when you concentrate people in Iraq or Afghanistan or one of these places, and the only outlet they have is their computer.
I got caught up in this. The Girls of Taji video and all that stuff that was going.
There
was a folder of, like you said, same thing. We trade all types of different. It wasn't just porn, right? Like movies, music. Like this is before you just get online.
Oh, your girlfriend sends you some lemony snickets, and
but they had created this one thing. It was called Girls of Taji, and it was like a bunch of nude photographs of like different soldier girls that have been, but somebody compiled it and this and that, and you know, it's getting sent to everybody. But somebody's like, "Yo, you want this thing?" I'm like, "Sure, you know, let me get it." You know, But then one day I'm on leave and I come back and like it's blowing up. Like everybody's like, "Who got this fucking file? You're gonna get in trouble and all that shit." And I was like, "Whoa." Shirked that, like I dodged that. There were no kids in this, by the way. Like, let's just get it.
It was like revenge porn type shit. Like these girls willingly had pictures taken and took pictures and
sent them to
homies.
They got
douchebags.
The douchebags.
Yeah, they let douchebags have nude photos.
The Panama Papers came out.
Yeah.
The Taji Papers.
I skated that shit so fast, you know, and so I didn't go down for that. But anyways, point. I just wanted to say I experienced that.
Yeah, the point is that like in the military, it was super commonplace, especially overseas, to trade digital assets. I can remember going into like the PC office, like the most esteemed office, the highest office full of like the highest ranking people making the biggest decisions in our little unit. And I'm going in there plugging into somebody's laptop and being like, "Oh, this porn looks good."
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, what you got?" Yeah.
Okay, I've never seen this before. You got the good shit. You know,
anyways, to the point of this guy.
The point is that these people who are going to do this fucked up shit, they're going to do it whether they have the power or not.
No. But the story about how that in NTC.
Oh, the NTC guy. Yeah. So we're at the National Training Center, which is, like in the California Death Valley area. And somebody is asking this dude for his laptop. They're probably trading some stuff or whatever. And somebody sees something on there, and someone who saw it spoke up. and that motherfucker got disappeared so goddamn fast. That shit went right under. They were like, "What happened?" Just sweep that shit.
They Leavenworthed him. Actually, I mean, he ended up getting prosecuted, but come to find out, this dude had like gigs and gigs and gigs of child porn and everything stashed away on his computer and shit. Like they found like all his stuff on his laptops and stuff, and he went away. Like he said, that dude just disappeared. I assume he got chaptered or like articled and put into jail.
And a lot of times these are,
I don't really know.
A lot of times these are networks.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of this, think about it like the mafia. Like when somebody's doing some criminality, some fucked up shit, and they get with other people who are like-minded who want to do that fucked up shit, they keep it all secret. So that wasn't the only guy in our unit. No way. Couldn't have been.
It was, way. They said that it was I remember words like child pornography ring getting thrown around. And to the point where they were even accusing this guy of like producing the materials and stuff like that. Not just even like finding it, but like producing. And I just remember thinking like, holy shit. Like that's when it hit to me so like, it could be so right next to you. Like these people are out there. Like this dude, I mean, he was a creepy dude. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like he was like the homie. You know, he was one of the weirder.
I kind of can't place him.
Yeah.
I know he was like
not
in my troop.
Yeah, no. He was just he was a weirder cat. But
Armament?
I don't remember exactly what part of the unit he was in. Yeah. Because this was like right after I showed up. Like right after I showed up. Like, so anyways.
Wait, this is our first. Yeah, this is the first rotation to NTC we did. Right before Iraq.
Yep.
Oh, because I remember coming back and doing a rotation. I couldn't remember which one it was.
So, anyways, my point was like these people are out here everywhere, military, like
one of them's goddamn president.
You know what I mean? Like it might be. You know,
the last two of them
when they do the document.
Because Donald Trump had a lot of. Well, and not even
they
just
didn't say they were underage pussies. He just said he was grabbing pussy.
Are you gonna tell me if you could speculate that Biden would grab on some underage pussy? I would imagine that Trump's the same type of dude that would grab
not even just imagine. It's documented that at the Miss Teen USA pageant, he was going backstage and copping looks.
Right.
So not only just that, he was also accused in court by multiple women, and some of those women were underage. So it's not just like, oh, Donald Trump's a skeezy guy.
Right.
There is a paper trail.
Right.
Now with Joe Biden, it's a video trail. Because you can see clearly that this man has inappropriate touching in his repertoire.
Yeah, he's got it in his locker.
Yeah, like if you had a list of moves like the old Mortal Kombat instruction booklet, fucking molestation that's one of his super moves for sure.
But the hair stroke.
Yeah, the awkwardly placed hands.
Yeah,
that's a move.
A telltale sign. Yeah. It's just weird to me though that like at this time, like I said, we all kind of know that she's underage, and I don't know how widespread that idea that they have gotten married was and this and that.
I was following the culture and had no fucking clue.
No, I didn't.
Even when she died, no fucking clue.
But to think that this like whole scheme to hide her age was like about how she'd be accepted in music and stuff, I thought that was really like in this whole like naming the album Age Ain't Nothing But like I said, this is grooming 101. Like y'all, it just felt so like
not to mention, I mean, that album, like nobody would ever think that album was written by a 15-year-old.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like she's singing like your love is 1 in a million. Like, but you've never even had. You've never like. How could you know it's 1 in a million if you've never had a million loves? You know what I mean?
Like 5 loves. You know, like at tops. You know, like that you could really say were like my home. So, anyways, you know, it was dude. Even the album cover is so creepy. It's like her on it. It's like,
the music video
and then
is
R.
fucking
Kelly's
creepy.
Like, hanging out in the corner like obscurely.
The music video where she's like acting all grown. I just remember like seeing it's like her in an apron like in the kitchen like doing dishes for like an older man. Like,
but I mean, so this is the first thing that goes on, and you know it all just kind of like gets skimmed through and nothing ever comes of it or whatever. But then as we go on, then in 1997. Tiffany Hawkins files a complaint alleging sexual battery and harassment when she was a minor. It's settled out of court for $250,000. This is what I was talking about with the idea of rich and fines and things. You know, it's like you said, it's so easy for these people to buy their way out of their crimes.
They wrote it into Harvey Weinstein's contracts.
Yeah.
Yeah. They wrote into his contracts like, we know he's gonna molest somebody. We know he's gonna do some raping.
Yeah.
So we better put it in the contract that if he does some raping, like, we'll set aside this money.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You see what I'm saying? And then like,
it's like how Walmart has a budget to just cover the loss from theft and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like we know people are going to steal.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna have some money set aside for when it happens.
Yeah, because he was quick to pay people off. If he couldn't, it was blood money tactics for sure. Like if he couldn't pay you off, then he would just get his goons to like
sign NDAs.
Yeah,
that's
making them sign NDAs, all that stuff. Like I pulled up one article here. Did I pull it up over here? Maybe I didn't get it. Maybe I didn't get it sent to you guys. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is the one that I couldn't bring up. But it was saying that used to convict R. Kelly came from the singer himself. He obsessively collected message slips and letters written by the women he interacted with, some of them underage, according to Ryan Chabot, the lead federal investigator in the case. Mr. Chabot said he sifted through the evidence recovered from several searches of the singer's Chicago apartment and storage facility. Some of the evidence in FedEx folders with labels like old messages and other pieces, like a 7-page front and back handwritten letter from a woman who testified for 3 days early in the trial, in protective sleeves and a locked safe. Calling Mr. Kelly a great man, the woman wrote. At the age of 17, I never had sex with Robert Kelly. Then proceeded to tick off a list of specific sex acts that she said she had not participated in with the R&B superstar.
A 7-page handwritten letter?
7-page. It goes on to say that there was this dude, like, every letter that prosecutors introduced at trial came from Mr. Kelly's personal collection, which appeared to be a years-long attempt to build his defense. Even before the indictment in Brooklyn was unsealed, they were all signed by the accusers who were at the forefront of the case. The accusers now say he forced them to write the letters, including a man who testified that the singer told him what to write word for word.
Well, this is really interesting because the next line, it says that this was known as collateral.
Right.
So he was using the colloquial term of collateral, but it was like blackmail. It was like a way, like get out of jail free card type thing.
Like even if the courts weren't going to buy it, it's a way to get that person to think, oh, well, people won't take me seriously because I just wrote this letter saying none of this is true. The
parallels with the Keith Raniere, Nexium, ESP sex cult. Keith Raniere was a man who he had gotten his money doing multi-level marketing. In the 90s, he had created Consumer Buyers Group, who was a direct competitor to like Walmart and other box chains, where people got together and used pooled their buying ability to get better prices, and you paid like a fee, and you got other people into it. Classic pyramid scheme shit. That man, when he later on formed his little sex cult that he was at the top of, he was the Grand Master. And he had Allie Mack down here as one of his other, as his slave. She would then make other women slaves. So he was the only man, and he would make a woman his slave and then make them have their own slaves. And one of the things you had to do when you enslaved another woman, because there were recruiters, when Allie Mack recruited her 6 or 7 slaves,
it was
master slave.
Oh, okay.
The name of the actual group was called Dominus it was called DOS, D-O-S, and what it stood for was Dominant Submissive Sorority. So basically, none of them other than Allie Mack knew that he was at the top and that you had to fuck him. All the slaves from the top down after him were all women, and it was a master-slave relationship. And what he did was he set it up where the woman would go to the other woman. The master would go to the woman and say, hey, do you want to be in this really specific women's only group? Okay, before I even tell you what it is, you have to give me collateral. And they had to give them nude photos, or they had to make a video of them shit-talking their family. They had to give them something to guarantee that they would not talk. Then you would get the talk, okay, it's a master-slave relationship. I become your master, you become my slave, you willingly participate in this, and you have to live by this certain set of parameters now. And eventually that comes to, you gotta fuck the boss. And it's cleverly strung along throughout all the other culty like things to be like, oh, it's for your improvements to make you a better person. Right. Like it's you give up this power to me, and eventually I give you the mission. And the mission is you need to seduce Keith and you need to have him take a picture of you naked. And these women would collect collateral on the other women and collect more collateral on the other women. They make it a monthly thing. They would get more masters would get more slaves, and then those slaves would get their own masters.
So he made a multi-level marketing sex cult.
Exactly.
Wow.
So when I see this, I did not know R. Kelly made them give collateral.
Oh yeah, and it's time he used pictures, videos, all that, because he would film them doing all types of different
when we say
sex acts, obviously peeing on him and all that stuff, and then use that against them.
When we say ring, that's pretty ring-like to me. That one of the other sex cults in America run by a millionaire was doing the same fucking shit.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why he went down on racketeering charges, because even a lot of people who worked for him and said, like, it was known, like, yo, I like younger girls, you know, like Drake will talk about this sometimes, you know, about how his homies will pick girls from the crowd to like bring backstage and stuff, right? Now, obviously, you know, I'm not gonna say obviously because you never fucking know anymore, but Drake's not like bringing young girls, but
I wrote down Drake and Millie on my notes.
Right, you know, like that's like a common practice in music, is to like, you know, send the homies out there, see who's out there, and be like, yo, bring some fine ones back, right? But, you know, Kelly would be like, yo, bring some fine ones, but, you know, I like them young, so fine.
Now, if it comes out that Drake has been with Millie Bobby Brown in some way, you know, if that ever comes out, are we going to look back at the interviews where they ask Millie what her relationship with Drake is, and she's like, oh, I text him all the time, he talks to me about boys. Are we going to look back at that the same way we're looking at R. Kelly?
I would agree, yeah, 100%.
I mean, I'm not saying that Drake is engaging in these acts with underage people, but I mean,
I never even heard about this.
It makes you look at it completely different, because like you said, we're totally just like, yeah, there's nothing to see here, you know, like what? They're just
Drake's just texting Millie Bobby Brown about boys.
But later on, it just seems like I said, when this stuff comes out, it's just like, damn, how could we be so fucking dumb to not see what was going on here?
Well, because, you know, like you said when we were talking about the Pandora Papers thing, like if you start using the loopholes, you're much less likely to want to close those loopholes more morally or whatever, because you think that it's wrong, because you're benefiting from it. And so it's kind of, I think it's sort of the same way, like you rationalize all these things in
like
your
all
head.
The homies in the crew.
Yeah, like you rationalize it so that way you don't give up this great situation that you find yourself in.
You don't want to fuck up your meal ticket.
Yeah. Or, you know, even if, you know, like the people say that like, oh, I separate the art from the artist and stuff. And it's like, you know, that's just a rationalization to get you more comfortable with listening to music from people who you know or have been alleged to be diddling little kids. And so it's like, we all do that with all kinds of different things. And I think that that's how a lot of this stuff goes on. Like, you're R. Kelly's assistant. Like, you've come to the pinnacle of your like executive assistant career, and you're going on tour, and you're like in France, and you're balling out, and he buys you all this cool shit. And like, you know, every once in a while he's hanging out with some young girls, but you never like see him do anything per se.
That's the
but
thing.
then you're like, well, you know, like, I don't know, you know, like I don't have any proof.
And so
then what are you going to do? You're going to go sabotage your whole career just because you have a feeling that he's hanging out with too many underage girls?
One of these people in the R. Kelly documentary series was talking about how he would go to the studio. There would be naked women who were probably pretty obviously 15 hanging around, and there was beds in the studio where Robert was fucking them.
Right.
And this literally, like you're saying,
but he didn't see their
or they didn't know their age.
Well,
so
that's
they
the
just
thing.
Kind of,
but
they must be 18.
That's exactly the point that you were making, though, was like the meal ticket. This guy who walks in, who thinks, damn, these girls look really young. And it's kind of strange that Robert's got them all on these super short leashes and is commanding them everywhere. And they're sitting on his lap, and he's taking them into these rooms and closing the door where there's beds. It doesn't take a fucking rocket scientist to figure out he's probably fucking underage girls. And if anybody in that room had been like, how old are you?
Right.
But instead, they were like, hey, shut the fuck up. We'll just pretend we don't know how old they are. Don't say a word. Nobody asks these questions because Robert just hit I Believe I Can Fly. That shit was on Space Jam.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's worse than corruption. It's collusion.
It's asking somebody to shoot themselves in the foot for somebody else's reprehensible morality. And it's like, you know, like that's hard to do.
And not to mention, like you said, it's easy to rationalize. You know? Like I don't think these people are like bad people where they're like, I'm just gonna turn a blind eye because I want to keep.
They hold
my
some
money.
blame.
No, they just, you like you said, you see it, you think it's kind of weird, but nobody else says anything, right? Like there's 7 of us, 10 of us, we roll as a crew. You're new to the crew. They don't talk about it. You know what I mean? Like nobody's explicitly said like, hey, Kelly's a fucking little girl, right? So it's like easy to just be like, well, maybe I'm tripping.
Yeah, all these other people like, and this happens. This has happened to me so many times. You know, you get a job at some place and you go in there and you sit down for your little computer orientation and it tells you about all the little safety procedures. But then you get out there on the floor and like nobody's doing any of these safety procedures. And like maybe some of them are kind of like, you know, like, hey, this baler's kind of fucked up, you know, like there's a possibility that it might explode when you're making this bale, but it's all good. It never has. And it's like, you might be worried about that, but what are you going to do? You're going to go to HR and be like, hey, you guys need to replace your baler because I've heard these rumors that it's fucked up. And it's like, no, you just fucking put the cardboard in the bale and, you know, you kind of stand off to the side when you push the button.
Depends on how complicit you could be in the commission of a crime. So in the baler example, if I notice like, oh shit, the back of this baler is broken. If I operate this baler, there's a chance that it could hurt somebody. I have to then make the conscious decision. I am not going to operate this baler until it is safe because if someone gets hurt, I could be held liable. So in the R. Kelly thing, it's like, okay, if you're going into the room and you think these girls are underage, but you don't want to fuck up your meal ticket, you're somewhat culpable. You have committed, it's like aiding and abetting. It's like you may not be fucking those little girls, but you're not helping them.
Well, but the whole point is that it's like plausible deniability. Well, that's, with the idea that you don't know for sure that they're underage girls.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's kind of the legal loophole that gets you out of
like I could see it way differently if a girl comes running to you and she's like, please help me.
Well, what if
oh my God,
Robert's been raping me for 6 years and you're like,
Sorry.
That's the boss.
Well, he was on Space Jam.
Where's that bar then? What's the reasonable bar? What if they look like they're 9?
Yeah. No, well, see, and that.
Everybody. Then are you criminally culpable? Like that's the thing.
I definitely think they hold blame.
Yeah.
Right. But I like he said, like use the job example. How many times have you been at a job where like somebody just reaches in the fridge and grabs a soda and starts drinking it, and you're like, we can get, I do it all the time, man. You just grab one, get a soda. You know, you're thinking, isn't this wrong? This is wrong, right? We're stealing from our establishment, right? I shouldn't do this. But at the same time, if 4 employees come running and just grab a drink, you're going to grab a drink, or you're not going to say anything. Maybe you don't get a drink because you think, nah, that's too sketchy. I'm not going to do it. But you're not going to just immediately run to the boss and be like, hey, they're all drinking drinks out the drink machine.
It depends. What is the trend there? If the trend is, I've seen other people who work there get fired for not speaking up when people steal, you're probably going to fucking speak up because you don't want to get fired. Right. It's all about...
But in this particular situation, like you said, it's not going to happen.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is like, not only is it morally fucked up to not ask the age of these girls when you think they might be underage, like it's also like it's super beneficial to never say a word because you're getting your paycheck.
And that's what I said.
And I see what you're saying because it'd be like the same as if somebody who runs a bar and they're not carding people at the door, and then when they get busted for having underage people drinking in their bar, they're like, I didn't know. You lose your job. I didn't know that they were underage, and it's like, well, you're supposed to know. Like, you're supposed to know that they're underage. Like, that's kind of the whole reason why we have the IDs and shit. Then that's why you're supposed to check them, is so that you don't accidentally, even if you're not doing it intentionally, serving minors. And so it's like, but the problem is that that's like a business sense, but like, like now you're like morally obligated to like investigate your homie if you think like his girl looks young.
This is the nuance though, because in the law, it's going to say something like reasonable suspicion or reasonable doubt or reasonable. It is reasonable that you walked into that room and saw a 9-year-old naked and didn't say anything. It's reasonable to suggest that any reasonable person would see that and say, yo, what the fuck are you doing fucking this 9-year-old? You know what I'm saying? But once you
why is there a naked schoolgirl in the studio?
But once you get into the realm of, she looked 18 to me.
Yeah.
Then it depends on how reasonable.
I thought she was a little person.
It just depends on how reasonable that is. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
I think the situation, like with everything that I feel, especially when it comes to legal matters, the situation, like it's a nuanced thing, and so like you said, you'll have to dig into the actual scenario. Like if you were just, R. Kelly called you to drop off some wings to the studio. You just popped in, dropped some wings on the table, and on your way out, you were like, was that a naked bitch?
Yeah.
And then, like, you get in your car and you're driving away. You're like, man, that naked bitch was real young, you know? Right? But then it's another thing if you're, like, in the studio working with him, there's all these young naked bitches walking around, and he's like, hey, we gonna hop into bed for a little bit. You're like, all right, R. Kelly, I'll catch you later. I'm gonna keep working on this beat. And you're just sitting there while you hear him fucking her in the back. It's like, I can see that there's a little bit more blame on that guy legally than the other guy who was just like, man, I saw, man, it's like I went to drop off some wings over there and I thought that girl was pretty young, but
it's exactly like the mob though. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's the bosses who know everything that's going on, how deep it goes and this and that. And then there's associates and down to the other guy who's like, look, I just got paid to drop off a bag. I didn't look in the bag. I don't know. Right.
Yeah. Like
and it's like, you know, it's hard to say, like you knew it was something that you shouldn't be doing, but
you knew enough not to look in that bag.
At the same time, you didn't have a lot of details, and so this is kind of how this R. Kelly ring is, and that's why he went down for racketeering, because he had people on the payroll like security guards and the tour manager who paid the bribe to the guy to get the fake ID for Aaliyah.
Yeah,
like. You're fucking deep in it, my guy. Like, you can't sit here and tell me, oh, you know she was under... Like, stop.
I was just getting her a fake ID.
You know, like, what are you fucking talking about,
when they got Keith Raniere, they also got the Bronfmans, who are the daughters who are the heirs to the Seagram's fortune, who backrolled him through a lot of his work.
Seagram's like the drink company.
Yes. Huh. Yes, the Bronfmans. Claire and Sarah Bronfman, maybe. But they were like the billionaire backers of this man and part of his little coven type thing. They got Nancy Salzman and her daughter, who were his partner in like developing the courses, and her daughter, who was also branded, who was a master who had slaves. And they also got Allison Mack, because Allison Mack was right at the tip top. Some call it the tippy top of the sex pyramid.
She was like the Ghislaine.
Yeah,
exactly right. She was the Ghislaine. She was the the master recruiter. So you got Keith Raniere on top, and right below him you got Allison Mack, and then she's got her slaves, and it goes and goes and goes, and it's just like multi-level marketing. Now, one of the fucked up things about this case that put it in the news and actually got these motherfuckers indicted and got Keith Raniere in prison for the rest of his life was the branding. Yeah. That was the sensational. Like, when I saw this story hit the news, it was sex cult where they brand people. And I was like, damn, brand people.
Fucking weird.
That's
like cattle.
That's crazy. Then I look at the brand and you see the brand, and it comes out that the brand in the original Wall Street Journal story or the New York Times story is Keith Raniere's initials and Allison Mack's initials combined into an image. And what they told these women that they were branding was that it was a symbol of the elements. The line on top was the horizon of the sky. The triangle, the big triangle, well, that's a mountain. And then the little squiggly at the bottom, well, it's the water, obviously. But if you look at it from this way, it's AM. And if you flip it this way, it's KR. Allison Mack and Keith Raniere.
It's creepy.
And that right there was just like, bro, the symbols. It's always these fucking symbols, man. India Oxenberg is the daughter of a woman named Catherine Oxenberg, who's one of the people that broke the story. And she was in Dynasty, the television series. And her mother is the princess of Czechoslovakia or Yugoslavia or some shit.
Damn. It's crazy how, like...
Okay, so you see the brand there. Yeah, clearly, you can see the K and the R. And if you look at it the other way, you can see the A and the M.
And the M, right?
The line at the top is the horizon. The triangle is the mountain. The squiggly is supposed to be the river.
Yeah. It's
but see, like this, for me, I just...
So creepy.
Like, even if I was interested in joining like a group of some kind, the moment you start talking about branding... I'm out.
That's not how they do it, though. That's the fucked up thing. Yeah. So not only have they brainwashed these people who get the brand for months, years into their program, because this is a very
so it's not like part
program.
Of the orientation.
This is Scientology.
Yeah.
Okay, look at this like Scientology.
Oh,
Keith Raniere is 100% fucking
when you were talking about the collateral. Like the same thing they do when they make you do those fucking...
Yeah, you talk that shit.
Talk that shit, and they record all that shit, and then they use it again. Anyways,
this is classic, right? So what this motherfucker was doing, just like Scientology, is he would brainwash you, and he'd get you into the program. Oh, we're going to talk about the big thing they do was EMs, explore meanings. So what they would do is they'd sit down across from you one-on-one, and it would be like a teacher, they called them proctors, and somebody who wanted to know the sauce and in their little course or whatever. And they would be like, what are you afraid of? Or something like that. They'd explore you, and they'd use neuro-linguistic techniques to figure out what's the blockage. Why aren't you writing your book? Well, it's because as a kid you weren't loved enough. Whatever the fuck. They explore the meaning, and they do this. They charge you, okay? They charge you for these sessions, almost like therapy.
Yeah.
Wow.
You then go on a pathway within the organization where you get different levels of sashes. You get a white sash as a student. Then if you want to follow this path, you get little lines like a fucking sergeant until you get a yellow sash. And then you get a green sash, and you're a proctor. You can do the EMs to other people.
Video game
okay?
technique.
Then you start, once you get to a certain level, now you're boss man level 500 ninja. Okay, well now you can give your own EMs and charge people and start up your own little multi-level marketing group in, say, Seattle. Okay? So the ladies that were getting branded, most of them were proctors, were people that were
already in it.
They were already so
deep.
far deep in this that they invested their entire life in it. The woman who finally came out, the woman who's showing her scar right there on the left there, she was the co-founder of the Toronto ESP Nixium Center.
Wow.
Okay, so I mean, she's put everything into this. She's a proctor. She's a high-level person within the company. And someone who's above her comes to her and says, do you want to be part of the secret group? Okay, well, give me titty pictures. And then you get the titty pictures. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to tell you about it. But if you want to join, you got to give me even more collateral. And then they get you in. And then they get you to, okay, we're going to take you to we're all going to get together. All the masters and the slaves, we're all going to get together and meet. Because by this time, you've been trained as a slave. And they train you, like, they'll text you. And you have to ask every calorie you eat. You have to text your master and say, Master, I would like to eat 92 calories.
Weird. That's the same thing in the Kelly.
Yeah, because Keith Raniere wants to keep them all skinny and
looking
beautiful.
good, yeah. And so it sounds like in these sort of cults like Raniere's and maybe R. Kelly's, like, it's because I'm imagining that the fucking's happening pretty early on, but they have to kind of like brainwash you enough to where you can't pull out of it. Because that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, how do they get these girls so invested so early to get branded and be fucking these people and stuff like that? And it's like, but you're saying like really you're not fucking nobody until you're like a proctor and you're branded and everything. And then they know, like, well, you're not going to say no.
Once they get you up to that level of, okay, now you're my slave and you have to submit to me completely. Now they have, it's like they hacked you.
Yeah.
And now they can mind slaver you. And they can tell you, I'm in control.
It's classic in that Robert Cialdini book. They just talk about, what's the word? I forget what the word they use. But it's just like, if you give a oral confirmation that you'll do something, you become an X percentage more likely to do it and follow through. If they make you write your name and like sign something like a letter or something like that, the odds go up even further. And then the more you do it, and this is a classic.
It's the need to remain consistent,
right? Yeah. And this is a classic slippery slope technique, right? Like you said, the salesmen use this to you and everything else, right? It's like first it's just like, hey, I'm gonna just come in and show you some vacuums, and the next thing you know, you're buying like 7 vacuums, and you're like, what happened? I didn't even need a vacuum,
Yeah.
But they kind of get those little small concessions over time, and the deeper you get, the more you've already done. You've already given up all these titty pictures and done all this stuff. Now it's like, get the brand, and you're like, well, you said, I can't go backwards. At
the
this
way
point.
they got this woman with the brand
was the same way.
The way they got this woman with the brand was, we're gonna bring you, the masters are gonna bring the slaves. We're gonna meet up. So the one master, Lauren Salzman, who is the daughter of the lady who co-founded this whole thing with Keith Raniere, that was the master to this woman who became the informant. She gets her to go to Albany or North Albany, where the group is kind of all together. They get all the slaves together. And the master is like, okay, we're going to take all you ladies and we're going to go somewhere. And it's going to be, get naked. And the lady's like, I don't want to get naked. She's like, get naked. You're my slave. Get naked. So they get them naked first. And then they take off the blindfold and you're around all these people and you're naked. And they're just like, you're all my slaves. Get in the car. They get him in the car. They take him to Allison Mack's house. And now they take the first woman. They lay her on a table and they say, you're my slave. You're going to get this mark. And we all have the mark. You're going to get the mark. You're going to be one of us. We're going to put you into this special group. Now, the woman who ended up becoming the informant, She describes being there for like 2 hours and being the last one to go and watching all these women get branded. And then they put her up on the table, and she says she completely disassociated. She completely went outside of herself, and they branded her. And when she kind of came out of it, the woman who was her master was right above her, and they had this deep moment, like just incredibly emotion-filled moment. Mm-hmm. And they talk about it in the tapes, because the people who came out and leaked this information and brought it to the press were also the documentarians for the group. So they had been taping all their calls. They have the call where this informant is talking to her master and saying like, this is fucked. I didn't want to get branded. Mm-hmm. And she's like, but wasn't it such a beautiful moment? And she's trying to convince her that this is a good thing. And that's when the lady's like, are you trying to is this all about fucking Keith? Is this all just some ruse to fuck Keith? Mm-hmm. Turns out it was. She was right.
You figured it out.
Because he was doing this about 8-10 years prior with within the same group with other leadership in the group that had then defected, because he was doing it a little too open. He didn't have a secret society dominant over submissive sorority. He was just fucking like 5 or 6 different ladies that were on the board of directors.
It's strange how much this sounds like the R. Kelly situation, though, because people kept calling, because when it came out in the documentary that he had all these girls up at his house and they were like all locked in, like same thing, like when they could go pee, when they could eat, when they could all that stuff, like he was dictating their every single move, the grooming, the like collateral. Like it's strange. I didn't realize that he was really just building like a sex cult.
Yeah, it's just like one of them, R. Kelly, didn't have the best organizational skills to make the really.
He didn't know how to do the.
He didn't have the business mind to make a really dynamic sex cult that was really streamlined for optimum efficiency.
But he was using a lot of the same tactics.
But Keith Raniere, man, he had that shit figured out. This motherfucker right here got 120 years.
Yeah,
deservedly.
I saw that R. Kelly was facing life. It might be because of all the extra racketeering charges and stuff like that.
He's not done. He's still got he's got more cases in Chicago and other places too. So I mean, he's gonna go away for a long time.
Crossing state lines was a big thing in the Raniere thing, because he would get his masters, or his slaves who were then masters would pick up other slaves and get other slaves in like the entertainment industry and the music industry, and they'd bring them from like Toronto to Albany and then brand them and fuck them, and and then they would go on their way or whatever.
R. Kelly got caught for the same thing with the Mann Act. Like I guess supposedly they would like pick up girls from the fan club or something like that and bring them to shows in different cities and countries and stuff. And
so the R. Kelly thing all blew up for the same reason. Like somebody finally came out and was like, yo, like this is what's going on over here.
Well, so that's the most fascinating thing I said about this whole situation with the R. Kelly situation, right? This is what I was talking about. First, this Aaliyah situation happens in 1994. Then we get this 2001, the 97, we get another lawsuit, right? 2001, he gets sued again. These cases get dismissed or postponed or whatever. You've never, at this point, us is just regular going, like culture.
Never hit my culture.
Never heard about any of this. It wasn't until 2008 till the sex tape comes out where he's pissing on this girl that it all
everybody
like
knew.
Comes out, right? But now that's 2008. I mean, I'm talking 13 years ago, something like that, right? And again, it's so weird how it was a joke. Again, it was a joke. No, all I remember hearing about was
show.
R. Kelly pissed on a girl.
Yep. Chappelle show. Like, I'm gonna pee on you.
Yeah,
drip,
how
drip, drip.
funny and weird it was that he was into peeing on girls. But I never not once heard that this girl was like 15 years old. Like,
is that because the media controls the narrative and they have some sort of agenda?
No, I just think it's just like our podcast. It's just like our podcast. What's gonna be more entertaining to the viewer, right? If we make jokes about this and like you're looking at this and you're like, okay, she may or may not be 15, we don't really know, or R. Kelly's peeing on people. Like you said, what's the more? It is kind of the media. What's the more sensational part of that story? Because that's why he didn't get convicted in 2008. They couldn't actually prove that she was 15 in the video. Like they couldn't get any evidence to really like link this girl's age. So it really just ended up like R. Kelly's weird guy pisses on girls, but they couldn't prove that she was underage. And so I just think it was more that was just more of the kind of like we're talking about the branding situation. It was that more audacious part, like sex cult, whatever. But then you hear the branded people and you're like, what? That's fucking wild. So I don't know. Yeah. But again, it gets kind of swept along. I mean, really, he get that 2008 shit goes down, and the trial begins in 2008 for about whether or not this girl's underage and all that shit.
They picked him up in 2002.
Yeah. It started in 2002, right? Exactly. That's when he was indicted on the charges. And he posted bail. He never spent time in jail. He keeps getting out. They dropped the case, this other case, Anyways, the point was dude, that's already you know what I mean? How are we just letting this go on for years? And he just keeps shirking it. He throws some money out at the situation, or he just gets acquitted, or he bullies these girls into retracting their statements. And nobody ever puts all the pieces together. That's the weird thing. It's
they're looking at them as isolated
incidences, but you never start thinking yo, it's like the Bill Cosby type situation we talk about. I'm funny enough, Bill Cosby was one of the people that came out to Kelly's aid. He was what they're just trying to tear another successful rich black man down and this and that, because he brought up the point that nobody gave a shit until the documentary, and he was saying that it's weird that the media has the ability to prosecute people now, which is a kind of a good point, but not coming from an already convicted. If I was R. Kelly, I'd be hey, I got this.
I'm good, Cosby. Yeah, you just not a good look.
Yeah, just don't come to my aid, dog.
That point there, we haven't always had the internet, so who was going to talk about this if it happened in 1982?
Yeah.
Right? Would have made the papers.
Right.
Maybe he gets indicted and then it hits the papers or something. But
as a little tabloid section on the side.
But before you could make home sex tapes, nobody was going to know. That's, Jimmy Savile was operating in the 70s, 80s, and 90s before it was widely accepted that there was instant information or videotaping and things like that. That's why he got away with it for so long. R. Kelly made a tape. He made a fucking tape of it. And still, 6 years later.
Nothing. It's crazy.
That's fucking crazy.
All the way up until 2019 when somebody had to make a compilation 8-part documentary series, you know what I mean, where people were like, oh yeah, this is kind of fucked.
We should look into this.
Yeah, and then now he gets, pulled in and actually convicted and all this stuff comes out. And it just, I get why people say entertainment pedophilia is kind of different than everyday Joe shit, because I don't know, because you hear this happen to everyday Joe shit where the kid's I tried to tell people 7 times and nobody would believe me, and it's yo, we gotta start taking this shit more seriously when these allegations come out and stuff. Not that I say you should just run off on an allegation and be yep, he definitely did. But again, 1, all right, maybe, whatever. But when it's 2 and it's 3 and it's these multiple, I've never been sued for child pornography or any of that types of situation. I told you that one time for the legal porn. But outside of that, I've never been in these cases and in I don't know people who've been in these if they were, I would be that's weird, dog. How did you get caught up in that? 5 times. You know what I mean? That's just so weird to me. But a couple other points that I wanted to bring up on this R. Kelly situation, okay? Because this is where it gets a little conspiratorial, right? You got to remember now, the whole Aaliyah thing goes down. She's 15. At 16, they break ties. It's not but 4 years later that Aaliyah mysteriously dies in a plane crash. Now, we just put this dude away for racketeering charges, for having an entire ring, for having, people that would go out and do muscle work for him and bribing for him and all this stuff. I'm is it such a far stretch to think that maybe he got this bitch murked through this plane crash? You know what I mean?
Also, we have to look at the fact that this plane crash, didn't it happen in South America?
The Caribbean.
The Caribbean. Okay, so you're looking at outside of the continental United States, to somewhere where it's going to be a lot less eyes, a lot less eyeballs. Be a lot. It's kind of like when Lisa Left Eye Lopez died in South America, on a bus or something. There was a car wreck or a bus wreck, and it's you kind of expect there to be less safe roads down there. The same way we expect in the Caribbean, if you're taking a small flight, it's going to be less safe.
Yeah.
You're giving up a certain amount of safety when you're flying in and out of the Caribbean.
Check this out.
New details on the life and shocking death of Aaliyah. In an Oz Show exclusive, the superstar singer's uncle is here revealing the inside story of her tragic loss. But
the
first,
uncle who was her
it's
manager?
been 20 years since she died in a fiery plane crash, and serious questions still linger. Was she drugged before she got on that doomed flight? What really caused this plane to nosedive back to Earth just a minute after takeoff? And how did her illegal marriage and alleged abuse by R. Kelly occur? Oz Show senior investigative correspondent Marcia Ocampo has the latest.
Ever since appearing on Star Search at just 10 years old, single-name sensation Aaliyah seemed destined for greatness. She burst onto the music scene at 14 with her double platinum debut album, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, produced by her supposed mentor, R. Kelly. Soon after, the alleged sex abuser reportedly had his tour manager get a fake ID for Aaliyah by bribing an official, changing her age to 18 so Kelly, then 27, could marry the 15-year-old. But her parents quickly had the marriage annulled, and Aaliyah reportedly broke off all ties with the singer. The Princess of R&B went on to achieve great success during her short life, making 2 more hit albums, earning multiple awards and 5 Grammy nominations. The self-proclaimed perfectionist was even the youngest person ever to perform at the Oscars in 1998. Praised as a role model by many, she's credited with helping redefine hip-hop, pop, and R&B in the 90s. The sky was the limit for the singer, dancer, and actress, who was cast as the star in 2 movies and had just started filming the much-anticipated Matrix sequel. But on August 25, 2001, at the age of just 22, Aaliyah's life was tragically cut short when her plane crashed, leaving the Bahamas after a music video shoot. Suspicions soon arose about the pilot, but her untimely death was overshadowed just weeks later by another tragedy, 9/11. Now, 20 years later, she's cited as Jane Doe number 1 in the case against R. Kelly, and more questions have emerged about what really happened that fateful August day.
Marcia Ocampo joins us now. I want to start with the disturbing allegations that have emerged from the R. Kelly trial. What are prosecutors saying that he did to Aaliyah?
Yeah, the reason Aaliyah is part of this case is because prosecutors say she is one of the victims in a decades-long criminal enterprise led by R. Kelly, essentially for the purpose of sexually abusing underage girls. Now, during this trial, one of R. Kelly's former tour managers testified that he is the one who personally bribed a government official to get a fake ID for Aaliyah, saying that she was 18 years old when she was really 15. Why did he do that? Because R. Kelly reportedly wanted to marry her. That's what this man testified. And he said that R. Kelly wanted to marry her because he had gotten Aaliyah pregnant, and he wanted to be able to legally authorize an abortion for her as a minor at just 15 years old, and he also wanted to protect himself from prosecution.
It's reprehensible.
It's awful.
I understood the getting married part. I didn't realize there was a potential baby involved.
And he was seeking protection for himself, according to this testimony, that he didn't want to get in trouble for this pregnancy, and so he was trying to fix it.
On August the 25th, as you heard earlier, 2001, Aaliyah and 8 others died in this fiery plane crash just a minute after taking off from an airport in the Bahamas. Sadly, no one survived. Now, she'd been filming a music video just 200 miles east of Miami. A witness has since come forth claiming Aaliyah was given a pill before she got on the flight. What have you uncovered about that allegation?
Yeah, the new book, Baby Girl, reveals some new details about the final moments before that tragic accident. And according to the author, Aaliyah was sitting in a taxi as her team and the flight crew argued nearby about whether or not to take off, and she complained of having a headache. Now, reportedly, a baggage handler nearby said that someone from her entourage gave her a pill. She took the pill, and that right after, she fell into a very deep sleep. So deep, in fact, that she was carried onto the airplane still asleep and may not have even been aware that she was on the airplane. Now, we should say we don't know what that pill was. It could have been aspirin. Maybe she was just very tired from a long video shoot. And the baggage handler did say that she took it willingly. But it does reveal some new information about those final moments.
it's just the whole process is so bizarre what she was living through. And I guess when you have that kind of fame that early, there are things that happen. Yeah. But this did not work in her favor. After the crash, investigators determined the small plane was carrying about 700 pounds over its limit. And this is important. The center of gravity was too far back in the aircraft. The pilot must have been doing some of these calculations. Why would he risk his own life? And what do we know about him?
Yeah, according to the book, the pilot did not want to make this trip. And he reportedly argued with Aaliyah's team because he thought that it was unsafe. So he did make those calculations and he did decide that it was unsafe. However, after protracted negotiation, they went through with that flight. Now, we did also learn some new things about this pilot. According to autopsy results, he had both alcohol and cocaine in his system.
The pilot did?
The pilot did.
Whoa.
He was not the authorized pilot for that plane, and he had just joined that company a few days prior to that flight, so he was very new with that company.
Well, thank you so much for the great info.
Damn, she got Bill Cosby'd and they Kobe'd her.
Yeah.
Wow.
Damn.
That's crazy.
That's
you just get some drug addict, drunk dude who happens to have a pilot's license, get him put onto a fucking company. 3 days later, he flies a plane that's 700 pounds overweight and crashes immediately upon takeoff.
Yeah.
Convenient.
How did the plane end up 700 pounds overweight?
That's
a lot of
all
weight.
All of Aaliyah's fucking baggage.
You know what I mean? But
you know how women pack.
No, but I'm serious. Like, like think about like, I'm even all the equipment, like lights, cameras, all that stuff,
assuming that they were traveling with all that.
People, you know what I mean? Who knows? Dude, interesting fact, Hype Williams was directing that. Like this, a little bit more. I watched a little more of this. Like the uncle comes on and he was like, Hype Williams was directing and stuff. And they were like, is there anything that you wish you could have changed and stuff? Because he was our manager at the time and stuff. Also the guy who introduced her to R. Kelly. So we don't know how far deep that goes. Like we don't know. The uncle's been in the business for a minute too. So he talks about
he's R. Kelly's manager too.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, if R. Kelly's fucking droves of underage women, if anybody's going to know about that, whether he rationalized it, didn't really know, it'd be his manager.
You know what I'm saying? Like, she was releasing her music on the uncle's record label. So it's just like, he's heavily invested in the situation.
Was it Lolita Records? Shit, it's crazy how in your face this kind of shit is.
You know what I'm saying? But he was like, yeah, if I could change anything, I didn't want Hype Williams to direct that. Like, he was like, he was kind of trying to put it on Hype Williams like it was his fault or something. Because they were like, well, why was it in the Caribbean and all that stuff? And he's like, that's just where Hype wanted to do it. But anyways, but I'm just like thinking.
I'm just here to frame Hype Williams.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but like all that, so sketchy. The pill, the drugs. And now I'm sure he wasn't like drunk or drugs, but probably like the night before, a little partying, out there in the Caribbean before the night of. But 700 pounds. Like we've been in that industry, like air flight industry and all that stuff. Like weight imbalance is like a huge thing.
Oh, huge.
Dude, I've watched pilots throw the biggest fits over like 25, 30 pounds, 700
especially
pounds
on that tiny little biplane. 700 extra pounds. I mean, that's like a third of how much that plane weighs.
Yo,
they just, they had 3 NFL linebackers that they needed to bring back.
Shoved in the back like there, like,
Hype Williams insisted that he wanted the Tampa Bay Lightning's, he wanted the biggest guys. Like
there were extras in the music video.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
So I don't know. Like I said, I mean, if you're gonna bring this guy up on racketeering charges, and we've seen how far these schemes can go with the Keith Raniere situation, with the Jeffrey Epstein situation, like even R. Kelly, the links that he's already gone to cover up all his little plots and ploys. I mean, I think that this is just so sketchy to me all of a sudden. Like, I didn't think anything of it. I was younger back then. I was just like, oh, shit, Aaliyah died. That's crazy. But now looking back and hearing all this stuff coming out about it, I'm like, I don't know, man.
It's like, if you want me to believe that it's a coincidence, that this is the guy who just got hired, who had drugs in his system, who flew this plane overweight, like, it's tough to take all these things as coincidences.
Yeah, it really is.
Like
it really
it's like somebody,
it really is.
It's almost as if someone told you that the reason that we couldn't stop the 9/11 attacks is because at the exact same time of the exact same day,
we were simulating
that exact same attack. And so they weren't sure if we were still in the simulation or if we were calling for real planes.
Right.
And it's like, What?
What a stretch.
It's like the London bombing in the train system. Like, oh yeah, we had been training the exact same attack at the exact same points that the attacks happened. It's like, did you tell anybody about that?
Here's the big coincidence that always comes back to for me with 9/11 too, and it's like there are no coincidences. It's what originally woke me up to this idea that like, damn, there could be grand conspiracies. 2 towers and another building fell. 3 buildings fell. We found his passport. Get the fuck out. You found his passport. The guy who flew the plane into the building, you found his passport.
Where I saw an explosion happen. Like,
they didn't recover the black box. But they got the passport.
No
Get
telephones, no desks,
nothing
but
no video footage of the Pentagon getting hit by a plane, but we got the passport.
Though. Yeah, like, come on, dog. It's right in line with that. You know what I mean? It's right in line with that. Anyways, my point was, this is all sketchy. I think we should have caught this a long time ago with this R. Kelly shit. Dude, I was reading stuff in the articles where people were saying, like, on the same days that he was being indicted for charges or being, like, coming out of court, he would be doing, like, church singing things with kids and stuff, like the very same like day. Like, you know, I'm just like,
you leave from court for your child molestation trafficking trial, and you go to a church and sing with a choir with kids.
It's like, why do we let these people just, you know, and like I said, it's science, really. It's the halo effect, right? And the halo effect's a real thing where you just, when people are of a grand stature, you tend to overlook all these negative features and things about them, you know, like you just kind of look straight through it, you know, for whatever. It's like when a girl's super hot and you let her get away with all this bullshit in your relationship because she's so hot.
The Catholic Church not only moved priests around that they knew were molesting people everywhere they went, they had a book every year that they published that was like, where are all of our priests? They're at this church. They had a code for when they moved somebody. It was like involuntary leave or something like that. They had a fucking code for the fucking guys who molested kids.
Right.
In their fucking
like,
directory.
how are they not getting pulled up on racketeering charges and shit and like creating a sex cult?
Because they own everything.
I mean, that just makes me, that reminds me of when the Xbox 360 first came out and the red ring of death was a thing. And I thought it was amazing that nobody was talking about the fact that Microsoft put red LEDs into the Xbox because they knew that it was gonna fuck up, and they needed a way to tell you that it was fucking up. And it's like, wait a minute, there wouldn't need to be red lights in here unless you knew. If you fix it, then there wouldn't be red lights.
Yeah. I could talk all day about the Kelly situation because, like I said, details are so crazy. Even
same with me and the
that
Nexium
Renee
shit.
thing, like that thing goes deep. I watched that documentary on that one too because I stay up on my cult shit. You know?
Yeah,
and that shit was.
If you thought I was obsessed with serial killers,
yo, no, I
should see me with cults.
No, me like
Love
cults are my that's my go-to conspiracy lane. Of us, like, you know, like you said, some people, Jessica likes to watch murder stuff and everything. If you're gonna get me into any type of investigation story or something, it's gonna be on a cult because they end up so. And plus, I like psychology and stuff like that, and then obviously I'm hyper aware of the fact that I could be seen in that type of light, you know, to some of the work I do. So I'm just always interested in that whole scheme. And I'm just like, yo, that one is on some way fuck shit. Like, I don't know how that didn't come down. But the last point I have to make, because this is a interesting topic to have. This happens every time this situation comes out, right? With the Cosbys and the Kellys and the Michael Jacksons and and it's just like anything, murders and all this fuck shit that they do. This stat just blew me away though, right? This headline. R. Kelly's album sales up more than 500% following conviction. So this is just as of like
October 9th.
Yeah, right? Like as of publishing of this, that says after and convicted felon Robert Kelly's album sales shot up 517% following his guilty verdict for racketeering, kidnapping, and sexual exploitation of a child. The week following his conviction, his on-demand audio streams were up 22%, while his video streams were up 23% compared to the previous 7 days.
Wow.
What do you think about that? Like, what do you? Why do
I
you
think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially when it said album sales, because we live in an age where there is not only famous people, there are infamous people. So if you become, if R. Kelly who sold fucking millions of records over his life, suddenly at the age of, how old is he, in his 40s?
54 or something
54. Like that. He hasn't made good music in a long time. So now it's like, oh shit, he's famous again. Mm-hmm. He's still alive. He's famous for some fuck shit.
It reminds you.
But it's the same way. Okay, they caught a guy in Brazil recently with the biggest stash of World War II Nazi paraphernalia.
What?
In ever.
Mm-hmm. That shit goes for big money.
Well, not only that, they also caught him with an insane amount of child pornography. So this 54-year-old guy in Brazil had a huge trove of child pornography and a huge trove of Nazi paraphernalia. Somebody's going to have a trove of R. Kelly paraphernalia. Somebody's going to have a trove of Jimmy Savile paraphernalia. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's like the women that are like attracted to the serial killers.
To the school shooters or something. If those school shooters had made albums, they would have fucking skyrocketed in sales. What about the song about the kid who fucking, you remember that kid, Lil Tay whatever, Tay K? He fucking killed somebody, goes on the run, makes a song, puts out a video while he's on the run and shit. And that shit, that's a banger.
Yeah.
I've listened to that song. He murdered someone. The baby murdered someone.
Yep. Wine and Melly or whatever.
These motherfuckers be murdering people.
And we're just like...
And we're like bobbing our heads.
So
it does not surprise me that R. Kelly sales went up. And I don't think it's because people fuck with him more now. I think it's because of his infamy in this specific case.
My parents brought up a good point about that. Like, maybe... people are afraid that his albums are going to get pulled, like
get canceled.
Right.
Like the Dr. Seuss books.
And you won't be able to get them. So they're like, oh, shit, better get my R. Kelly jams now before I can't get them anymore type thing. So, but it's still, I've struggled with this so many times in my lifetime. Like I said, like Michael Jackson, I was a huge Michael Jackson fan, and for all that stuff to come out, like you talk about rationalizations, I still be listening to Michael Jackson songs and I rationalize it by saying, well, he's dead and that all those things were just alleged, right? But see, that's the same type of shit that people were using for R. Kelly for 20 years while he was still diddling little girls and boys. It comes out.
It's the cognitive dissonance that allows people who don't believe that sexual assault is okay to vote for President Trump, who openly admitted to sexually assaulting people.
Right. Yep. You do that. You like try and say the art's not the man, or like, whatever, and this and that. Because they brought up a good point. Like, these are streaming services and stuff, so he still gets paid off that. He's still fighting legal defense for all these things and stuff, and like he's still out here, and you're like lining his pocket. He's out here paying $250,000 to shut people up, and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, for me, I'm just like, it's tough for me to listen to his music knowing that now that money is going to go to paying bribes so that he can continue to touch. It's like when they talk about funding terrorism.
Yeah, buying him vanilla Cokes from his commissary.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that's really tough. But I kind of see how it happens. Because it's like you said, like, damn, that's fucked up. But that shit's a banger.
Still, and there's also scarcity.
Ignition is a banger.
When I watch Space Jam and I Believe I Can Fly comes on, a tear still comes to my eye, it's like, it's a good song.
And I can see like holding the song separate from like the person, right? Like you can still like the song but condone the person, condemn the person. Yeah, condone means like
I fuck with you, yeah.
And your music.
I like the song and you fuck as many underage girls as you want, buddy. I'm condoning all of it.
To each his own.
I also thought about the idea that you put up a good word to it, John, is infamy. Like there's so many kids out here who don't know who R. Kelly is. And then now all of a sudden he's like up in the thing, and you're like, "Yep, who's R. Kelly?"
Also,
scarcity.
Like, who the fuck is that? Also, scarcity. Because they're not making any more R. Kelly albums.
Right, that's true too. So it's like gotta get to it.
We live in the age of NFTs. We live in the age of collectibles being a viable source of income for people. It does not make it makes total fucking sense to me that they would buy all those records. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's an indifferent thing. It's what happens when someone is thrust into the zeitgeist.
Yeah. But it's the same logic as when people want to tear down the statues, and all that stuff. It's like some people are gonna tie those two things together and say like that's an evil person, so everything they've ever touched is evil, and you can't do that. Like I said, I fall in this weird category where, like I said, like R. Kelly, I'm not listening to his music anymore. Like, I'm done with that. I'm done with R. Kelly. I haven't listened to R. Kelly jam since I can remember. Since this stuff started to become really prevalent, I was like, I just can't really get down with it. And I think, like I said, my rationalizations being like, again, he's alive. I don't want you really profiting. Like, I don't want to put my money into what you're doing and all those things. And then also, too, it's just like, I wasn't like the biggest R. Kelly fan in the world before. Like, his jams, like you said, they were pivotal in my time, like Ignition and I Believe I Can Fly. And all these jams were like, at their time, were like my top, tippity top jams. But not enough for me to like go back. But like Michael Jackson, he's like timeless to me, and I'm just like, fuck.
I think
like,
each person
tough.
has their own like kind of internal barometer.
Right.
Because if you start taking it into like hypotheticals, like you know, I would ask you, oh, what if Drake was fucking Millie Bobby Brown? Like, would you still rock with Drake? Now, if you flip that back on me and you're like, yo, Kanye just got busted. He was, you know, out there, you know, he's banging Billie Eilish 2 years ago or something like that, and it came out. Like, I would have to check my internal barometer because if I started listening to Kanye and I started thinking, God, this motherfucker is a pedophile. He's an assaulter. He's a rapist. I'm probably not going to enjoy his music as much
as you do. Yeah.
But if you enjoy his music, I'm not going to call you a fucking rapist or a bad person.
Yeah.
You know, with Michael Jackson, it's a lot grayer because, you know, having watched Leaving Neverland, I came out of that thinking there were very credible claims that he was molesting children. He's also probably one of my favorite musicians of all time. And it's really hard for me to hear one of his iconic songs, especially from his album Off the Wall. That one just spoke to me. I fucking love that album. And when I hear it, I dance. I get a beat. I get excited. I get happy.
Yeah.
I never, ever think in my head, this motherfucker was raping kids. My internal barometer is different there.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can say this for Robert Plant, Led Zeppelin. You can say this for Axl Rose and Guns N' Roses. You can say this for the
painters,
long history of,
like you said, all our presidents who owned slaves and like
the
all,
movies
like,
that Harvey Weinstein produced.
You know what I mean?
The movies that were made by that famous French guy who was, you know, fucking Woody Allen's films. Fuck. I mean, like, it goes on and on. Have you ever watched an episode of iCarly as a kid and really enjoyed it?
Right.
Well, it turns out that guy who made that shit had a foot fetish.
Yeah.
So, like,
yeah,
it's hard. Like,
it's at that point, I think that it's like that old saying where, you know, never go into the kitchen of your favorite restaurant. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, like there's always something behind people that you're not going to agree with, whether it be all the way at the level of fucking underage people, or if it's just like you don't like the way that they voted or
hiding
whatever,
their
like
money overseas.
Yeah, there's always, you can always find a reason to not fuck with somebody. And so for me personally, like, yeah, like, I guess this is like another way that I come off as like cold or whatever, but like when I'm listening, like when Michael Jackson's music comes on the radio, like I don't really, like, I like Michael Jackson, but it's not like I'm pulling his shit up. But like when it comes on, like I jam it. And, you know, but like I also understand, like, he may or may not have been sexually abusing kids, and like I don't condone that. But I, you know, I just don't, maybe it's a selfish thing, but like for me, it's just like I don't have enough time to worry about all that kind of shit in my day-to-day life. Like if I was going to be, you would literally waste your entire life just trying to expose everybody's faults so that you would have, so that way you're not accidentally empowering that or something like that. And then you're just a recluse at that point. You're just somebody that, because nobody's perfect.
No, that's the point that I was going to lead to, which is like, it's not selfish. I think as humans, we have to just accept, or the world normalize the fact that like nobody's all good and nobody's all bad. Like every one of us at this table have done things that we're not proud of. All of us have done things that were great for humanity. And I would say that every man and woman who's ever graced this planet is in that category.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to, and it's important for two reasons, not just so you can listen to your music and feel okay about it, but also when there is somebody who you think is great, like an R. Kelly or something, and you're hearing that they're doing fuck shit, you need to be able to recognize that this person is capable of doing fuck shit as well. Like, you know, like just as great as they are and all these amazing things they've done, don't keep it in your mind that they're just a saint and they're just the purest soul, you know. Oh, Mother Teresa, she was so like Mother Teresa did some fuck shit. Maybe not diddled kids or whatever, but she did some shit that she's not proud of, or lied, or made some decisions, you know. Like, we all are sinners in our own ways, and like, but keeping that will be able to keep your music and be able to keep those two things separately, but then, like I said, also be able to be proactively being like, that's wrong. Just because you're a good guy doesn't mean that that's not fucking wrong what you're doing.
Yeah, like you can kind of hold the two things in your mind at once. It's like Chris Tucker rode on the Lolita Express with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yep.
Okay. I thought Rush Hour was hilarious.
Yep.
Those two things can exist at the same time. I can also have in this hand, I don't fuck with Chris Tucker. You know, if Chris Tucker came to me and was like, hey, man, I just need $5. I'd be like, nah, get the fuck out of here, Chris Tucker. I know you flew on the Lolita Express, you sick fuck. You could condemn somebody and still be like, hey, let me get your autograph.
But that was... but it does tarnish stuff. I mean, I can't help... Like you said, I'll still listen. And you were saying it doesn't really hit... Like, it does hit me sometimes. You know, like, I'm listening and I'm just like, I still have to... I have to question that. Yeah. Like you said, like, thank God, like, Drake never had no shit come out about him or nothing. So I can listen to his music. It's great music. And I can keep my mentality. I'm like, Drake's just the best dude who ever fucking walked the earth. You know, like, God.
He never fucked anybody over.
This is amazing music. And he's a great guy. But when, like, there's like a Michael Jackson or something, I'm like, man, it's a good ass song. But it's a shame he diddled all those fucking kids, you know? Yeah. Like, and that has to seep into, like, it tarnished that experience in a way. Like you said, doesn't mean I won't go to it. The beat's still catchy and everything, but it does.
It doesn't have the same
those
hit.
Two things will trickle, and you will find a lukewarm medium, you know? It's
like, your barometer will change.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, Hitler did some good things. He did some. Nobody out here is like, Hitler, man, what a great guy, right? Like, your barometer was too fucked off with, like, shitty shit. It outweighs all your good. And that's
honestly, the Hitler example is really interesting because I'm thinking, like, two examples that came to me are on the opposite end of the spectrum, where it's like, you know, MLK, there was a lot of stuff about how MLK mistreated a lot of women. And there's a lot of stuff about how Gandhi mistreated a lot of women. And it's like, you don't really hear that talked about as much because they did such good things, you know, for so many people. And I think, you know, R. Kelly, it's a little bit easier to kind of shit on him because it's like, he's just a musician. You know, like, you may love his music, but it's not like he was out here, like, really doing, like, you know, he didn't march on Washington with fucking like a Million Man March. Like, it's a little bit of a different level. In the same way that with the Hitler thing, it's a little bit of a different level because, like, he may have improved the economic, you know, opportunities for a few Germans, but he was also murdering millions of people along the way. So you really nobody talks about how he kind of raised the economic status for a little bit because it's totally whitewashed by all the murders.
You make a great point too. If we took the ruler from 2021 and tried to measure our founding fathers, they're all gonna fall short. They're all fucking kids because at the time in 1776. You could marry a fucking 5-year-old or a 6-year-old.
Not to mention you consistently raped your slaves.
Like, or just had fucking slaves. So, like, I'm not condoning those things, but if you take a ruler from the time, you know, the 1776 ruler, and you measure George Washington, you're going to be like, comes up great.
Yeah.
Love this guy.
Great fucking guy.
Whereas, like, I was telling you, like Kelly's resume, it's like all this fuck shit. And he made a couple bangers. You know what I mean? Like, those become the footnotes to all the fuck shit that was in your life. So, yeah, I mean, you know, that's
so the takeaway is just to remember, always do more good than fuck shit. So that way when your fuck shit comes out, the good whitewash.
Also make sure your fuck shit isn't as bad as your good shit is good.
Right, 100%.
You got to do light fuck shit work. Hard good shit work.
Kanye, prime example, wears a MAGA hat, talks to Trump and is friends with him. That's what some would consider the bad. But look at all the good shit. I mean, look at the Sunday service. Look at the Donda Academy. Look at the music itself. Look at the expression, the art, the love and joy he brings to the world. I think it outweighs the red hat.
You know, you know, it's weird because, you know, I definitely don't think that we should be the ones to do the weighing. But it's interesting. Time does the weighing. You know, that's the one thing I noticed about all this stuff. Like I said, in 2002, whatever, like, you was the GOAT. That was the GOAT right there, you know? But time's got a way. Time is the overall judger, you know, because all that shit will come out. And like you said, back in 1776, you might have been the GOAT. But now in 2021, it all comes to light. And now it's like, it's a different scope, you know. So I mean, time.
That's why I never understood the whole, you know, like museums won't show Nazi stuff. You know, like there's like a Nazi museum that's like dedicated to it, but obviously they enjoy Nazism and it's like a shrine to them. But like I never understood like how are you gonna like never forget but hide all that shit so that nobody has to see it? And it's like, well, that's a great way for people to forget about it.
I think everything should be shown in context.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you want to go learn about the Holocaust, you should have a place where you can go and learn how horrible it was. Because there's going to be people out here who say it didn't happen or it wasn't that bad or something like that. And you could take them there and you can show them the shoes. You can show them the pictures, the video, like the physical proof. And
I was there. I went to Dachau. Like you feel it. Like it was a weird, surreal feeling going to that camp. And like, you know, they still have some of the barracks open and like they have like the gas chamber. Like I stood in the gas chamber and it was just an overwhelming feeling of just like countless lives died in this room.
For me, it was Gettysburg.
Yeah.
I went to Gettysburg and like just the rolling hills and just like looking around, just being like able to close my eyes and be like, man, we lost so many Americans who were both sides Americans. Just slamming into each other like a fucking meat grinder.
Just like fucking bodies stolen out.
Yep. That was a thought that I had as we were kind of walking around the grounds. Like I couldn't help but think like every single step that I take could be on ground that somebody passed away on. Like in some of the most horrific ways that you could ever possibly think. And so, like you said, like educating yourself on all of those things and having time expose all of these things. And that's why it's good to have those things preserved. Because I wouldn't, you know, like I had already known about Auschwitz and Dachau and all these places. And like you hear about them and it's a terrible story. But then you go to the place and you feel the feeling there and the energy in the air. And it totally changes the way that you think about it. And so I think that that's important to like keep all of that stuff in the light. Like you said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Like expose that stuff, because if you never hear about it, then you don't even have to go through the trouble of rationalizing.
I want to throw in the other pole to that too, which is, you know, give people their flowers too. You know, like give people their flowers too, because I thought when you were saying that, I thought about the comment that we made earlier about the government and like all the fuck shit that gets leaked. You know, like maybe they should leak more of the good shit that they're doing and proponents of like all this amazing shit that's happening, because then maybe I'd have a different view of that. And maybe the government's a bad example, but I'm just like, we see this in people's lives too, where we're constantly chastising people for the fuck shit that they do and all that, and like always trying to shine light on people's faults and flaws, but then never really giving people credit or due or that same light when they do good things too, so that, you know, that same principle that we were just talking about. Like, you know, like you said, I think it all should be exposed. It should all be out there. Like, let everything be out there so that it can all be evenly weighed, right?
And you're talking about changing human nature for the better, which I agree with. Because if right now, if it bleeds, it leads has kind of been what's going on since the dawn of humanity.
Right.
But if we can get to a point where, you know, we want to see good news, we instinctively don't want to just see drama and bad shit. I mean, if I pull up TikTok and you're like, oh, what's John's algorithm look like? It's nothing but confronting Karens, auditing police. It's all just drama and fighting and negativity and things like that. And I like seeing the authority get taken down when someone thinks they have the authority and they really don't. Man, I love when they fall down on their ass and get dirt on their pants. Love that shit. Now, that's if it bleeds, it leads. That's negativity. I am awash in that. That's why when I look at something like TikTok and I turn it off, I'm like, why the fuck was I doing that? Get off me.
That's why anytime watch a funny movie. Anytime I watch a scary movie, I never go to bed with that shit on my mind. I'm like, all right, I gotta watch Dumb and Dumber now. Gotta at least, it's like sorbet in between courses. Like, I'm not gonna go to sleep with murder on my mind. Like,
one thing I want to touch on this cult shit before we end it. Sure. You know, talking about the R. Kelly cult thing, it's kind of like, well, what were the positives that came out of that? You know, I guess like his music. Like if you want to look at what is the silver lining of R. Kelly's existence? Well, he made some really good music. You know, I Believe I Can Fly tears me up, and it's a church banger. Okay. If I look at Keith Raniere and Nexium and ESP, it was employment something solutions, executive something power. ESP was the name of his like an umbrella group. They called themselves Espions. And it was he originally pitched this as, we're going to go into your company, take your executives, teach them this course, and they're going to be better people. And they're going to be able to handle people better. We're going to get you the best workers. And the positivity, even just watching the documentary, knowing this guy was a terrible person who had sex slaves, the concepts that he would talk about when applied correctly sounded amazing. Mm-hmm. They sounded absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. It reminded me so much of just self-help in general, or just the journey to find oneself. It was like the Buddhist teachings. It was like these amazing ways of thinking about your life, how you could change them, how you could apply these tactics. He called it technology. This man was a fucking scientist.
Scientology did the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, he had multiple degrees. This man was a fucking 240 IQ, Keith Raniere. He's a fucking genius. He figured out technology to help you unlock your potential. Those are positive things. There's probably people out there right now. It's like Dianetics with Scientology. Yeah. I'm sure that helped countless people.
Yep.
But all that good does not negate what you did. Like, just because it's just like with the R. Kelly and the music, it's like, yeah, you made some great music, but you also raped those kids.
Yeah. By the bucket loads. Yeah. And like you said, yeah, that's a good point. Cause like you said, Scientology is the one like that catches a bigger rap. Like, it's hard with me with the Raniere thing because it's like
there was only like hundreds, maybe thousands in like the inner circle. With Scientology, we're talking big numbers.
Because there's tons of people who've gone into that system at the ground level, you know what I mean, and like just passed through there, taking the information and made it on their way
and flourished
with it. It wasn't until you got around the fuckhead who was like, manipulating that, that sucks. But
and I'm sure if you did some research, over his career, I'm sure R. Kelly donated all kinds of money to different causes and charities, and so it's like you said, every person has good and evil in them, and it's just about the way that those things are expressed through their traumas and their emotions and their actions, and nobody's gonna come out looking squeaky clean, especially when you measure them to to time.
But one of them will be a legacy, though. Yeah. I think that's where it comes down to me. Like, that's what keeps me on that path, I guess. Is like, when I'm said and done, I know that like I'm leaving a story behind, and I've always wanted my story to be this grand story, like I said, but I've more lately come to the realization, like, my story is going to be whatever it's going to be to whoever it's going to be. Like, some people are only survived by their family, and only your family knows who the fuck you are and what you did, but that's going to leave a lasting echo through time with those people, you know? And like, because like I said, when you're dead and it's all said and done, it's all going to come out, and everything that it's going to come to light. And that's my thing. You know what I mean? Like, when I'm like said and done, I'm like, I hope my legacy is one that when people look back and like they're sitting at my eulogy, they're not spitting on my fucking grave and being like, what a fucking douche that guy was. It's like, I hope that people look back and they're like, man, what an awesome dude. That dude helped me, or that dude did great things for people, or whatever,
Even if it's just the fact that you existed so they could exist. If you're talking about grandkids, I think about the guy who has the autograph book from the 1800s that I have, where I read his little quote and how much it affected me. I don't know anything about that guy other than he is somehow in my lineage. I don't even know that for certain. He could be the friend of the guy who was my great, whatever. But I know that those words I can take, and they gave me positives. He could have been a fucking, I think it was, he could have been a fucking slave owner. This is pre-Civil War shit that I'm reading. This guy could have owned slaves. But I read the words he said, and they resonated so deeply with me. That's what his name has lived on through that small thing. So, maybe you're only survived by your family, and maybe 10 generations from now, nobody knows about the good or the bad you did. But you live on. Your blood lives on. Your genetics live on. The decisions that you made in your life live on.
You said, we even started with that with the epigenetics conversation. Like you said, even the way you affected those people could lead to how they affected the next people and next people. And
you can't untie knots on a kipu.
100%. You just can't. It's locked in. It's tied in, and they're only going to add to it. But it's so cool because you always hear this in the spiritual talk too. Like, be the one that breaks the chain. Like, if you know, like R. Kelly could have been so much different, you know, like in a sense, like he was touched and all that stuff, but he could have been that one that broke the chain and became an advocate for people who had been in that situation and help other people. Instead, you know, he added to that, and then now all those people could potentially go on to continue that chain and stuff. So you're right, man. Like you said, it's that karma out here and shit. Like we're all leaving our little nuggets. So I hope we're all leaving those good nuggets, you know, leave those good positive nugs behind. Don't end up on our podcast fucking roasting your ass over here because you're a fuck boy. Oh, that's it. All right, man. Hey, that was an awesome episode. I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate y'all hanging out with us. And you know, 3 Averagely Intelligent Dudes. We'll be back soon. We'll see you then.
Peace.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this.